morning, everyone. I'd like to call this Tampa City Council meeting to order. At this time, I'd like to wish Councilmember Luis Vieira a very happy birthday. Happy birthday. Today's the day.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Councilman Vieira. Happy birthday to you.
All right. At this time, I yield to Councilmember Carlson for the invocation.
Thank you. And we have Jarshika Kowaleski and +1 speaking today. Originally hails from Shelby, North Carolina, but after 20 years and counting of active duty service, the Army brought her and her family to South Tampa in 2019. Shakia is the president of Southtown Park Homeowner Association and proud member of American Legion Post 138. She is married to her husband, Steve, a retired Green Beret, and they have two beautiful children together. Penelope, 2. Is that the 2-year-old? No, that doesn't look like 2-year-old. Okay. and one with one city, Penelope 2 with one city council appearance under her belt, and 7-month-old Samson. Okay, she is also a bonus mom to Caroline, 17, and Natalia, 15. So everybody, please stand. We'll do the invocation and then the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you, Lord, for blessing us all with the gift of life to be here this morning. Lord, we thank you for this amazing city that we live in. Lord, I ask that you bless the leaders of this city, from the city mayor to the council members, the aides, the staff, the workers that make this city go around. Lord, even bless the people that invest their time to represent the interests of the people. And Lord, I ask that you bless our leaders with the gift of discernment and bless them with your wisdom. I pray, Lord, for a productive session today where we always keep in mind the best interests of the people in Tampa. Lord, I pray that you continue to provide for and care for those who have lost a lot during the devastating hurricanes. We have complete faith in you that you will provide for those. And Lord, we also pray for a hedge of protection over our city as Gasparilla comes up. And Lord, we pray for the protection of our first responders, that they always make it home as promised at the end of the night. In your mighty name we pray, Lord. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Carlson.
Here.
Hurtat. Here. Clendenin.
Here.
Henderson. Vieira. Here. Miranda. Here. And Maniscalco.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
Thank you very much. Mr. Shelby, would you like to go ahead and review the rules and procedures of public comment?
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of council, members of the public. Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. I'd like to take just a couple of minutes to review the conduct of today's meeting and go over very briefly the rules of decorum. Now, if you wish to speak during general public comment at the start of the meeting after the ceremonial items, you'll have that opportunity to address any item on the agenda before the City Council takes official action on the item. If you wish to speak during general public comment, there are speaker cards that are outside the chambers and a box to place it in. We ask that you use one card per speaker. Cards will be accepted until the start of general public comment, so you can do that until the end of ceremonial. Each person submitting a card will be recognized by name by the chair to approach and speak. A 3-minute time limit applies. Please print legibly because names that cannot be read will not be called. Now, if you're here on today's agenda to speak at what is designated on the agenda as a public hearing, don't use the speaker card. There's a sign-in sheet instead, and you will be called and have the opportunity when that public hearing is called up on the agenda. Now, speakers and members of the public are also reminded that you are to refrain from disruptive behavior, including making vulgar or threatening remarks or making or causing disruptive noises or sounds or displaying signs or graphics that are distracting. Speakers are also reminded to refrain from launching personal attacks against any city official, staff member, or member of the public. Please direct your comments to the council as a whole. The chair will rule out of order any person who speaks without being recognized, and persons failing to comply with the council rules may also be ruled out of order at the chair, and at the discretion of the chair may be removed from the chambers for the remainder of today's meeting. Finally, city council members should refrain from engaging a speaker under public comment. And the public should be aware that city council does not take questions or have a dialogue during public comment. This is your opportunity to express your position. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I have a motion to adopt the minutes from January 9, 2025 and the evening session of January 16th? We have a motion from Councilmember Clendenin, second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. With some housekeeping, I'm going to go through the staff reports. There was no administration update per Chief Bennett. That's correct? All right. Item 56, do we need somebody here in person?
I don't think so.
No? All right. How about 57? No? No on 56, no on 57. How about 58? No? And 59? No? Item 60?
Yes.
Yes on 60. Ms. Feely is going to be here to present a verbal report. So yes on 60.
Yes
Item
on 60.
61?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Item 62?
Yes.
Yes. Item 63, yes?
Yes.
All right. Item 64, there's a request to continue this to August 21st, 2025.
No, and if I may, for that one, no, I spoke to staff. I mean, that's 7-month continuance, which I respectfully would not agree to. And so came to staff and we agreed to either March 6th or the 27th. So therefore we'll go to March 6th.
All right. We have a motion to continue item 64 to March 6th from Councilmember Clendenin, second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor? Aye. For 65 and 66, we brought this up at Thursday night's hearing to remove these from the agenda. Can I get a motion to remove?
Can I say something?
Yes.
66, I talked to former Councilmember Goods last night, and this has been continued like 8 times, and I think it's disrespectful to the family and community to keep dragging this out. We either need to move forward or not move forward. I think it's disrespectful to keep continuing it. So I would say, if we're going to continue it to February 5th, that would be the last time, and we either vote yes or no at that point.
Okay. All right. So item 65 was my motion. I'd like to, can I get a motion to
So
remove
66,
that?
I meant 66.
Okay, but 65, can I get a motion to remove it?
So moved to remove 65.
All right,
It
motion
would be
to,
Also February 6th. 5th is not a date. The 6th is our meeting, not the 5th.
let's,
So I moved to remove item 65 and to continue item 66, and then
to February
February
6th.
6th, with the understanding that that's the last continuance.
And just a reminder, though, Council, that there are 8 staff reports and unfinished business set for February 6th presently. So,
I move to waive our council rules on that, too.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor to waive the rules?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
and now the date, a motion to make.
All right, now your
Motion
motion.
to remove 65, motion to continue 66 to February 6th, with the understanding that would be the last continuance.
All right. We have a motion from Councilmember Clendenin. Who was the second? Miranda? Councilman Miranda with the second. All in favor? Aye. And then receive and file 67, 8, and 9.
8, I'd like to have staff come in, please.
What?
That's a written report.
Written report, okay.
Yeah.
I'll
You can
make
set it for a
motion on
future date if you wish,
Do you want to bring it up later?
or you can talk with the staff and then bring it back.
So I can, I don't remember having, okay. What should I do? Make a,
You make a motion to continue it and ask for a staff presentation.
yeah, I'd like to do that, please.
And what date would be open on the agenda?
Do you want to hold it until you find a date?
Does somebody have it handy?
How much time is needed, do you think, Mr. Carlson?
Yeah, the short form on this is that the Parks Department said it might not make a park, but the community wants us to take this property over, and so we need to have a longer discussion
You
about
want to
it.
do March 27th? I think there's room on
Okay,
there.
so the motion that Clendenin said on March
So
27th.
motion to receive and file items 67 and 69, continue item 68 to March 27th with staff to have an in-person report.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Clendenin, second from Councilmember Carlson. All in favor? Aye. Let me just make sure.
that we have everything correct. All right, may I have a motion to approve the agenda and the addendum? We have a motion from Councilmember Miranda, second from Councilmember Vieira. All in favor? Aye. Mr. Shelby?
And, Mr. Chairman, those items that are on the staff reports, because of the dollar amount that you don't need staff for, in order to move things along, I would request, as become your custom, to take that at the end of the consent docket and move those then.
Okay, once I do consent, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Carlson.
Yeah, I just want to say, if there's anybody from Hyde Park that happens to be here to talk about this property on 68, please go ahead and speak in public comment, because it'll help inform us for when it comes back in March. Thank you.
Very good. All right, so we have a motion to approve the agenda and the addendum. It's already been voted on unanimously. We're going to go to ceremonial activities. We're going to kick it off with a commendation from Councilmember Hurtak to Mr. Harry Hedges.
Good morning. Anyone else who's here for Harry, if they want to come up and just stand behind us and just show their support today. I love when we do that.
I did that one time. My sister put it on. Trying to be Elvis. This is back in college.
So, good morning, everyone. Today we're celebrating Harry Hedges, just a wonderful, wonderful person who's done so much for affordable housing. And it is the City Council's honor to recognize Harry Hedges for his 11 years of dedicated service on the City of Tampa's Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. First appointed by Mayor Bob Buckhorn in 2013, Harry continued to serve as an AHAC board member until July of 2024, including 8 years as chair. Harry has served on several other government organizations and committees to tackle the affordable housing crisis and graciously shared his expertise and in-depth knowledge with AHAC. Tampa City Council wishes to thank you for your generous service to the citizens of Tampa, presented this 23rd day of January 2025.
Thank you. It is a long journey in supporting housing in the city of Tampa. I first started with Sandy Freeman, and she took over so that Governor Martinez could run for governor. At that time, a house was $63,750 in the city of Tampa. We came over from First Florida Bank and committed $3 million to kick off the Challenge Fund. So though I may have retired from this, I have not retired from affordable housing and standing up for not only the city of Tampa, but I continue with the county and the state. But we all look forward to helping the people that need the help the most, our people that serve our community. And that includes the teachers, the nurses, the firemen, and the policemen. So we have a lot of people that need your support going forward in housing. I am honored, and this lady who served on my committee for some time has been a great asset to what the city means to affordable housing. Thank you, and thank you all.
Yeah, I just want to say real fast, thank you for your years of service. And if you, with all of your experience, please don't forget you have our cell phones. If you agree or don't agree, more importantly, if you don't agree with something we're doing, call us and let us know. And thank you to Councilmember Hurtak, who's now bringing all the materials from that committee to us so that we see it. And then finally, thanks to the supporters, especially Governor, for coming today. You know, you've done a lot of great things if the Governor's coming to honor you. So thank you all.
Councilmember Vieira, Councilmember Miranda.
Yeah, no, thank you, Councilwoman Hurtak has a big passion for this, and thank you, sir, for all your years of work. Whenever, I mean, you do the work of George Bailey It's a Wonderful Life. And I mean that. And that character tried to make sure that everyday people had access to housing, and that's what you do. And the people here with you obviously speak to your work, and it's obviously an honor to have Governor Bob Martinez here, who's just a fine gentleman. We're so lucky to have him here in this room and here in Tampa. He's just a wonderful gentleman. But thank you for everything that you do, sir. Thank you.
Councilman Miranda.
I just want to thank you, Harry, and all of you, Governor, and all of you in the committee that have served or that are married to somebody who has served, because if you're married to somebody who served, in essence, you're serving yourself, because they're out there, and I got one on Bill. But what I'm saying is this. You know, the prices of housing are dividing city into more than just half. They're dividing it to a place where people can't live anymore. No matter where you live, whether it's New York or Montreal or Rio de Janeiro or Tampa, Florida, it's just a necessity that everyone needs. And if you don't have the opportunity to buy a house, and most of us do not now, I'm gonna give you an example. I bought my house, and my wife and I bought that house in 1968 for $12,800. If I get $450,000, I can't move somewhere else. So that's the problem we're facing, all of us. So in essence, it's got to be something more that the government can do, and that the land value now is equal to the price, half the price of the house, total cost. So we have a problem. Is it a good problem? Sometimes it is, and most of the time it's not, because people can't afford it. So I want to thank each and every one of you for your time that you're given for many years to make the thing easier and affordable as much as possible, so that someone can have a roof over their head and have hope that they can be better off than when they were before you guys got involved. Thank you all very much.
Councilmember Condon and Councilmember Hedges.
Yes, good morning. One, I'm gonna start by saying that I think, so I've served with Councilwoman Hurtek for coming up on 2 years now, and I think this may be the first time I've actually seen her do an in-person presentation to someone. So
They're rare.
To have her, I mean, she doesn't just dole these things out. So to have your service rise to that level, and her passion on affordable housing is quite a statement. Two, you may or may not know, I'm dear friends with Mayor Friedman, and the housing, the Challenge Fund, and what you all did during that administration was really instrumental in how I approach these public policy decisions in housing. I think that it was so forward thinking. It was a perfect balance of public and private investment, and neighborhood changes, and being able to, one, keep people in their homes, ensuring that lots or houses that were not being utilized were repurposed, and that we changed neighborhoods. And it really did change the trajectory of the city of Tampa. And I think everything old is new again. And I know Ms. Fila we've had these conversations before, you know, when we talk about how we're programming these funds, that is what we need to go back and revisit. And I think that you paved the way for the future of the city of Tampa, and that the pavement you put down, we're continuing to drive on. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Mr. Hedges. Congratulations to you on your retirement. Thank you for your public service. I am a recipient of the Challenge Fund, and I can get emotional about it, because one of the things that the city did in providing the Challenge Fund to citizens of our community is the opportunity to create generational wealth through home ownership. That's what's happened. I live in Tampa Heights. Didn't cost me $12,000, it cost me $50,000, which was a lot of money for a teacher at that time, but it made it possible for me and my daughter to own a home. And I know that it is because of the city of Tampa's efforts and the Housing Committee's effort to really create these opportunities for families. And so I'm just truly appreciative of that. You know, you called him governor, I call him a dragon. Our governor is here, Bob Martinez, and I appreciate that as well. Lynn, thank you for bringing this to the forefront and acknowledging him. And the reason why it is rare that teachers do that is because everybody can't get a trophy. So that's why she picked you, because it is well deserving. So thank you so much.
Mr. Hedges, you're a truly wonderful individual. I don't think I've ever seen you not smiling. It's always, you have this positive energy. It's always good to be around you, but you're a person that clearly loves and cares about this community, has been spoken and said. everything that you've done in service and giving back. We appreciate you. I appreciate your friendship. I'm glad that you're here today, that Councilmember Hurtak is honoring you. And I'm glad to see our former mayor and governor, Bob Martinez. I know you're all good friends, and, you know, we're very blessed to have you. So congratulations. I know you're not going away because there's also Cornerstone Kids and other organizations that you're involved with that I've supported, that I will continue to support. You have a heart of gold. You're always helping somebody else. So we appreciate you. Congratulations. This is very well deserved. We can move the meeting outside and catch pneumonia. Do what? Facilities. We'll just take a moment and go to the next item. We continued the Pharaohs. They asked for a continuance until next week, and then we removed the Moses White because he already has like 4 or 5 minutes. All right. Item number 2 is Councilmember Vieira.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a real pleasure to be here today. I wanted to have a presentation, as we've done for the last several years, for Holocaust Remembrance Day, which is going to be on January 27th. This is the date where it's chosen to commemorate when the Auschwitz concentration camp was liberated. And we have some very, very special people with us here today. We have Mr. Jeffrey Berger, who's here, who's president of the Tampa Jewish Community Centers and Federation. We have Mr. Joe Probasco, former president, as well as managing partner of Bush Ross, the law firm. We have Max Bray and Morgan Pagoda with USF Hillel, who will be speaking, I believe. We have Miss Sylvie Finesmith with Hillel's of Florida Suncoast, and we have with us here, I'll be meeting her afterwards, but Emily Bernstein with, I believe it is the Florida Anti-Defamation League, who's also here. So I wanted to invite these folks to talk about this issue. Obviously, such an important issue. We know that before October 7th of 2023, 60% of reported hate crimes to the FBI on a religious basis arose out of anti-Semitism. This is a very, very important issue, obviously. So I wanted to invite Mr. Berger to come forth. Go ahead, sir.
Chairman Maniscalco, City Council members, good morning, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak to you and to our fellow Tampa residents today. And Councilman Vieira, thank you also for your kind introduction, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
This coming Monday, January 27th, marks International Holocaust Remembrance Day, a day designated by commemoration by the United Nations. January 27th was selected because it was on January 27, 1945, a mere 80 years ago next Monday, that the hellacious Auschwitz and Birkenau concentration camps were liberated. Our next speakers will talk more about those camps in just a few moments. The UN General Assembly resolution establishing International Holocaust Remembrance Day urges every member nation to honor the memory of Holocaust victims, 6 million Jews, along with millions of other minorities who were murdered by the Nazis. The resolution also encourages the development of educational programs about the Holocaust to help prevent history from repeating itself. The resolution rejects any form of Holocaust denial and condemns all manifestations of religious intolerance, incitement, harassment, or violence against persons or communities based on ethnic origin or religious belief throughout the world. The message of this UN resolution, which is both inspirational and aspirational, is just as important today as it was when the resolution was adopted in 2005, and perhaps even more so. Today, as we remember, honor, and mourn the millions of lives lost in the concentration camps, we also remember that the Holocaust didn't start in Auschwitz, Birkenau, or all of the many other concentration camps. Those camps, the killing fields, the gas chambers, the crematoria, all those horrific massacre factories did not spring up in Germany and Nazi-controlled Central Europe overnight. Rather, those horrors were the culmination of a gradually rising tide of anti-Semitism that started much earlier, first with racist extremists spewing anti-Jewish hate rants, which then grew into personal attacks on Jews, which then turned into pogroms against Jewish communities, until finally, when the Nazis came to power in Germany, this Jew hate became the defining genocidal ideology of the entire Third Reich. Over the last several years, we've seen another dramatic increase in anti-Jewish hate speech and anti-Semitic incidents, and I have to say, the Jewish community is alarmed. We've seen what happens when these hateful activities go unchecked, but now we know better. Today, as we remember the Holocaust and see yet another rising tide of Jew hate in Florida, in America, and around the world, we are standing up and we are committed to a single overarching principle: never again. As we remember the victims of the Holocaust, we also remember the heroism of those who refused to remain bystanders in the face of Nazi oppression and who risked their own lives to save or protect Jews and other minorities. We remember with gratitude the so-called righteous Gentiles, over 11,000 of whom are recognized in Jerusalem for their courage and morality. We remember and honor the American and Allied soldiers who fought and defeated the Nazis, who liberated Auschwitz and Birkenau and the other concentration camps 80 years ago, saving the remaining Jews and other prisoners who were able to survive the Nazi horrors. And we recognize and thank you, the members of the Tampa City Council, for supporting our local Jewish community. You passed a strong resolution against anti-Semitism a couple of years ago, and many of you have been vocal and steadfast partners with us in our fight against the rise of Jew hate in our community. We appreciate your courage and morality on this issue, and we call upon all citizens of Tampa to follow your lead and join us in today's fight against anti-Semitism and all other forms of racism, bigotry, and hatred. Finally, I want to stress the importance of Holocaust education. As time passes, it is inevitable that we are losing our eyewitnesses to this awful period of human history, people who lived through the Holocaust and were able to give us their own personal, firsthand accounts of what really happened. As the number of Holocaust survivors diminishes, it becomes our responsibility to make sure that our generation and the generations that follow us will never forget the Holocaust. As the UN resolution makes clear, Holocaust education is critical to our primary objective, was to ensure that never again truly means never again. Our next speakers are outstanding examples of people in the next generation who are educated about the Holocaust and who can speak about it from perspectives that are both historical and personal. As I turn the podium over to Max and Morgan, I want to thank you again, City Council members, for your support and for providing us the opportunity to speak with you today. Max and Morgan.
Thank you so much. Good morning, esteemed Tampa City Council members, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Morgan Pagoda.
I'm Max Bray.
As we commemorate International Holocaust Remembrance Day, we stand before you not only as proud members of America's Jewish community, but as individuals who had the honor to bear witness to the devastating consequences of unchecked hatred.
Along with our classmates, we recently returned from a life-changing journey to Poland with USF and UTampa Hillel. The experience was nothing short of transformative. To witness the remnants of genocide firsthand is an experience that reshapes one's understanding of what it means to be human.
Participating in this fellowship to Poland alongside American Jewish students from diverse backgrounds was an eye-opening experience in itself. However, the true purpose of our journey is to share what we witnessed and ensure that never again is a reality.
It is crucial to understand that the Shoah, the word Jews used to describe the Holocaust, was not an event that happened overnight. While many suffered under the Nazis, the final solution was specifically designed to address what they called the Jewish problem. The atrocities didn't occur suddenly, but rather were carried out over time through the deepening of anti-Semitism, the systematic erosion of rights, and the unchallenged dehumanization of Jews. Jewish life in Poland, once thriving and making up 10% of the population, was decimated over the course of 12 years.
It's also vital to recognize that the genocide wasn't committed by a small radical group alone. Many across Nazi-occupied territories either allowed or actively participated in these atrocities. Growing up in modern-day America, the idea of seeing others as less than human seemed unimaginable, until I saw firsthand how people were manipulated by the lies of the Nazi regime.
How could people believe propaganda targeting a minority? As Jews, we often refer to ourselves as the canaries in the coal mine, because rising hatred often starts with us. The Holocaust wasn't chaotic, but insidious. The Nazi regime's methodical approach capitalized on deeply rooted anti-Semitism, turning it into a tool for political power. We share this not to dwell on the Third Reich, but to underscore how easily anti-Semitism, the oldest hatred, can be weaponized to devastating effect.
We need you to understand the depth of the Nazis' plans, which were not just about extermination, but about the total dehumanization of Jews, literally and figuratively. At Auschwitz, we saw over 7 tons of human hair taken from Jewish prisoners. The hair of our women, which is traditionally covered to preserve modesty, and the way our men show respect to God, was shaved off to dehumanize us, and then repurposed as a commodity to support the Nazi economy.
While it may seem like disenfranchising Jews of their identity, culture, and roots was abandoned in the annals of history, we stand before you to express that since the horrors of October 7th, we've directly and indirectly witnessed the same attempts, some accepted and some not, to weaponize hatred against us and Jews in general.
Despite the horrors and the unimaginable pain, our trip to Poland allowed us to discover the beautiful, vibrant, rich Jewish culture that once thrived in Poland. While we can never fully recover from the immense losses inflicted upon our people during the Holocaust, we stand before you today with hope and with pride. 80 years after the liberation of Auschwitz on January 27, 1945, Jewish life in Poland is being reanimated.
From dancing in an Orthodox synagogue with the local Jewish community members in Warsaw, to meeting with Hillel students in Krakow, we saw firsthand that the Jewish community, though small, is growing and strong.
Witnessing the light of Jewish renewal alongside the darkest chapters of human history has helped us process the tragedy of the Shoah. It reaffirmed for us the power of being an upstander of ethical and intentional leadership, and of the importance of valuing and contributing to society. Above all, it reinforced the values and opportunities America offered to our forefathers.
My great-grandfather was fortunate enough to escape the Holocaust and build a new life in America. Unfortunately, his brothers and sisters were not. I was raised with the values of equality, freedom, and the belief of positively contributing to society to ensure that the horrors faced by my great-uncles, my great-aunts, and humans in general will never be repeated.
Coming back from this trip, we felt a deep sense of comfort, knowing we're part of a community with leaders like you who genuinely care. We know you share our belief that anti-Semitism is something none of us want to see, for ourselves, for our children, and for every future generation. Together, with our shared ideas, leadership, and values that unite us, we believe we can make never again more than just words. It is something we can truly achieve. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. And, and stay up here if y'all want. And I did want to say very briefly, I wrote down to recognize the late Nat Ross, who died a little over a year ago. He was a Tampa Auschwitz survivor and lived in New Tampa, and his son Jay, granddaughter Dana, and others remember him. He was an amazing person. So, council, if y'all wish to say anything.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'll be with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Item number 3 is Osea Nguyen, our Administrator of Neighborhood and Community Affairs, regarding the Disability Internship Program. And that is also Councilmember Vieira.
Yes, sir. If I may tee this up, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate it. I wanted to invite these folks to come and speak about, I have my names here. The Special Needs Internship Program here in the city of Tampa that we should all be very, very proud of. We have here Raquel Poncho and Tavi Spidel-Fry, the intern here from our program. We have here, I see Regina, thank you very much for your work, ma'am. We have here Sean Stevenson with our city of Tampa. We have here Eric Kaiser, his intern. And I wanted to specifically say that Sean here has taken on Mr. Kaiser as a contractor doing formal work for the city of Tampa. So talking about what this program should do. We also have here Ms. Phyllis Guthman, Karen Levy, and Rita Hattab with McDonald Training Center. I see them out there and everything. So go for it, guys. Thank you so much.
Good morning, Council. My name is Raquel Pancho, and I want to thank you so much for bringing the internship program to the city of Tampa. I'm also very grateful Mayor Castor, Chief Staff John Bennett, Asia Wynn, and of course Regina for taking the efforts to lead this internship program. I've been blessed with the opportunity to work with Tavy. She graduated from MTC back in 2023, December, with the Microsoft Office training program. And she has been a godsend to me here in the office. She's helped me with data entry, doing research, creating fact sheets, doing data entry of all of the 8A surveys that I've completed. I'm also tasked with reporting my call logs, which is a lot of calls. So she has to read my chicken scratch and translate that to actual legible information. I'm very grateful for her work. I'll have her share information in just a second. But most importantly, I'm very grateful for the opportunity for the city of Tampa to bring this. Many times employers don't take the opportunity to look past a person's disability so that they can showcase their talents and their skills. And TV, given this opportunity, really is highlighting all of the talents that she can bring to an employer. I understand from her parent, her mom, that in her last job, she was asking to work more than 9 hours a week, and they never increased her hours. So, you know, here with the city, she's working closer to 20 hours a week. So grateful for that opportunity. And I'm hoping more businesses will see her lead in bringing this to the city of Tampa and recognizing that people with disabilities can really bring talents to the workforce. So thank you. Okay, and I'm going to have TV share information.
Hello, my name is Tiffy Spido. I'm currently working as an intern for Raquel Pancha, the ADA coordinator for the city of Tampa, because of the internship program between the McDonald's Training Center and the city. I'm absolutely enjoying my time working with Raquel. Sorry. And I'm also applying my Microsoft specialist skills with the many tasks she's been giving me. For example, several of the tasks are making presentations for meetings, using PowerPoint, providing data entry for the call logs like she mentioned earlier, using Excel, making research papers for like service dogs, or how eating disorders are affected by the holidays by Microsoft Word, and also helping her emailing awards for the nominees for the Asian Pacific Islander Festival using Outlook. I'm also been helping organize and filing, doing other tasks for her, and hopefully in the future I get hired for her for real, and so continue working with her.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to introduce Sean.
Yeah. My name is Sean Stevenson. I'm with TNI. So first of all, thank you very much for having this program. Thank you, Chief Bennett. Personally, it's been very rewarding. I got to know Eric over the past 6 months. It's not just a job and not just an employee, but it's also a relationship now. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. From the job perspective, we brought in Eric to do a lot of our PC deployments, phone deployments, and things like that. Those things for us are process-driven. There's task lists, and there's things that he can follow, and he knocked it out of the park. He did so well that we brought him on as a contractor. So now we've got a PC deployment for 2025. We've got phones for all of TPD that we're going to be deploying this year. We've got this text messaging archive project that we're working on right now. And then we got some Windows 10 that we have to migrate. All those projects Eric will be involved in. He's done a wonderful job for us, and it's been very rewarding for us.
I don't have anything prepared like Davey did, but I just wanted to say thank you guys for the opportunity, for everything that you've done and put your neck out there to give us part of the autism community an opportunity to show our mettle and let us show that we have the ability to do it. But without you guys, I wouldn't have had this opportunity, and I wouldn't have had the ability to meet Sean and meet the people that I have. It's been really fun. It's not a job for me. I enjoy it every day. So, thank you.
All right, yes, thank you.
Thank you. And I wanted to, for Tavy, I see, do you have any family here?
No.
Okay, no, that's fine. I didn't know if you did, but just, gosh, for Eric, I mean, I won't say a lot because I'll get emotional, but, oh, no, I'm Latin, man. I know how to get emotional, but I just, this is a great program. And so I'll be making some motions before I leave here at council for a couple of things, which is what we've got is great, but what y'all see here with these two people, we can replicate this times 20, and we should, and we will. I've got 2 more years left here on council, and I'll be damned if we don't do that before I leave. It's going to happen, pardon my language, but it's going to happen. So I am going to be motioning for a couple of things to look at this program, how it's being done, especially with other departments. I want to make sure that police, fire, every single department out there hires folks like y'all to give them a shot, to give y'all a shot. What we saw here is really, really beautiful. I also want to make sure we appropriated a lot of money towards this. And I want to make sure that we spend every single dollar, because what y'all talk about here today is beautiful. And I'm also going to motion that this year, if we don't spend every single dollar, the remaining funds go to McDonald Training Center and CUP, because I want to make sure that that money goes to promoting what we saw here today. I wanted to thank y'all, just everybody, Raquel, Regina, Sean, our friends at the McDonald Training Center, Mayor Jane Castor, John Bennett, who's about as big of a Catholic bleeding heart as they come for this. But we're going to take this beauty that we've seen here today and even make it bigger. So God bless you guys. And thank you, council, for your strong support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, we will go to public comment. We have one registered speaker, and it's Michael Randolph. Are there more? Mr. Randolph, if you're on, please state your name.
Yes, good morning. My name is Michael Randolph, and I'm with the West Tampa CDC. I want to start off by giving a shout out to the students, disabled students internship program. Come over to West Tampa, we got something for you. At the last CRA meeting, because of technical difficulties on my part, I was not able to explain our position in supporting this $10 million deal related to the West Tampa River project. While the benefits of bricks and mortar to the community was acknowledged, what wasn't acknowledged was the benefits to the ordinary residents in West Tampa. As most of you know, West Tampa CDC developed a people-centered approach to transforming the community. We use a 2-pronged test in that particular respect. Part of the test is, does it reduce gentrification? And the other part of the test is, does it build generational wealth? The real what we use is called TIE, T-I-E, technology, using artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, and the Web3 to increase resident value, investment, moving residents from a consumer perspective to an investor, and finally, entrepreneurship, creating what we call home-based businesses. If the current project aligns with the Rome Yard project, it will go beyond bricks and mortar by addressing the issues of gentrification and generational wealth, and it will be a win-win for the community. As you know, the Rome Yard deal did this by committing resources to our home-based business, which will create anywhere from 20 to 35 resident-owned businesses and create anywhere from 15 to 20 resident-owned businesses as well. Also, our technology center, which will focus on ChatGPT and the Web3. Well, what are the benefits? Well, the first benefit to the city is that it would increase the tax base because of new businesses coming to West Tampa. It would enhance the return of investment on this $10 million by providing anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million in terms of job creation and business. It will boost income and supplemental income to the low-income residents, including female head of households, senior citizens, the disabled residents as well. It also will be promoting residents-owned businesses, increase technology by increasing the economic wealth of residents, and will reduce the crime rate. We look forward to meeting with the developers on how they contribute to this programmatic and systematic as well as geographic approach to making sure the residents of West Tampa get that benefit from the $10 million we committed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Randolph. We'll now go to in-person public comment. Our first speaker is Bill Oliver, followed by Michael Gratz and Connie Burton. Bill Oliver. Good morning, sir. Please state your name.
Good morning. My name's Bill Oliver. I'm a registered professional engineer in Florida, and let me invoke the Elmo if I can. I'm here appearing on behalf of the Harbor Island Community Service Association to address agenda item number 61, proposed changes to Franklin Street. With only 3 minutes, I'll focus on the key concerns. The bottom line is that we think you need more information than is provided in the consultant report before you choose a course of action. Of particular concern to my client is the proposed installation of a new traffic signal at Water Street. In the report, a simple statement is made that the signal would result in de minimis effects, but there's no documentation in the report as to what the increase in delay or obstruction would be. Using analysis files and data from the report, my analysis indicates that the new traffic signal would impose from 37 to 67 seconds of delay to each vehicle on Franklin Street that gets caught at this new signal. When the event facilities are not active, this incurs unnecessary delay. The report indicates that only the pedestrian volume warrants were met, and that they were met only during Convention Center and Amelia Arena events. The usual warrants involving motor vehicle traffic were not met in any of the tested conditions. So while pedestrian volume counts were undertaken at existing crossing locations, there's no analysis of how many crossings are generated by events of different sizes or different types. Is the event serving a local population that will drive in? Or does it bring in a national crowd that use the hotels? Will meals be provided, or must attendees find meals at nearby restaurants? Are they day-long events or an evening rally, concert, or sporting event? So where are these pedestrians walking from and to? This kind of information is needed to inform short-term routing and control strategies, and longer-term, perhaps in looking at elevated or even weather-proofed routing strategies for the pedestrians. Florida DOT policy is to consider a roundabout before any new traffic signal is installed. The city of Sarasota has installed many roundabouts, and that's a small roundabout, but they have implemented many of them in their downtown area. The smaller diameter shortens pedestrian crossing distances, and they provide more flexibility for time periods when traffic volumes are low or shift from one entry leg to another, as happens with special events. A roundabout slows vehicular traffic, which is good for a pedestrian-oriented area, and can also help to recover for bicycles and pedestrians pavement that's now dedicated to cars.
Thank you,
so,
sir.
Bottom line, we think you need more information, more study.
Thank you, sir. Michael Gratz, Connie Burton, and Tesnot. Good morning, sir. Please state your name.
Good morning. My name is Michael Gratz, and I am the president of Harbor Island Community Service Association, which is the master association for Harbor Island. I've been that president for more than 10 years. I'm here to speak on agenda item 61 for the proposed 2 traffic lights on Franklin Street next to the Convention Center. And this would result in 3 traffic lights in an 800-foot area of the main artery used by Harbor Island residents. Out of respect for City Council's time, it's just been me and our traffic engineer. We didn't want to inundate you, as we normally do, with hundreds of emails and multiple people here. We wanted to get right to the point. We think we could have your attention. The Mobility Department first made this presentation multiple times to Harbor Island and did a survey, which they only received 35 responses from residents. HICSA did a survey this month, and out of 4,000 residents, we had 400 respond, total of 10% of the total base. Of the 3,000 registered voters, a higher number. We asked 3 basic questions pertaining to the plan for the traffic lights. 1, did the Mobility Department contact you for feedback? 99% was no, as you can see. Do you believe 2 traffic lights will impede traffic off and on the island? And it was 99% yes. The last one is, do you think the city of Tampa should conduct further engineering study? Again, 99% yes. 3 basic questions for people who are using this area multiple times a day. A typical traffic in a week out of our west gate, which would be the gate that most people use, the Franklin Street and Harbor Island Boulevard, is over 7,900 people back and forth. And so the Mobility Department did a traffic study. It was done during COVID. I can tell you during COVID in that area, people didn't have to go to work and weren't. Also, the 4 hotels that are in that area, I can tell you from being in the hotel business, your occupancy was around 10 to 30%, not what it is in the normal business period that you would have today. So I think that the period the traffic study was done was not a good representative period to determine what the traffic should be in that area. Well, also that there were restrictions that when the study was done by Stantec that they had to keep the Greco crossing. Again, the Greco crossing is a vestige that was been there 40 years ago. There were no hotels, much less Harbor Island residents. We're not saying the solution isn't needed. We think a solution is needed. We think this is too fast. What you're trying to do is incorporate the convention center, the Riverwalk, Thunder Alley. There's a lot of things, and doing the right alternative will really make it better for everybody. And thank you for your time, and happy birthday to the councilman missing. Take care.
Thank you very much. We have Connie Burton, Mentesnot, and Mrs. Stephanie Pointer. Good morning, ma'am. Please state your name.
Good morning, Connie Burton. First, I would say to all of the Palestinian people, prayers go out to them for their ongoing suffering that they're enduring as well. Item number 4, I'm very concerned about it, the way it is written as to training that the police department will be given to members of the housing authority. What would that be? We've gone through Biking While Black. We've gone through police, the department turning in information to landlords, and I would just caution you and pay attention to that. Last week, I want to bring this up, at your CRA meeting, you honored the past immediate president of the Tampa Heights Association, and he made it very, very clear that he had served on that board for 8 years. And I think about the fast ways in which the East Tampa CRA board had to come into compliance, and the community was no longer able to bring forth its representative because you wanted us to come under compliance of how all other CRA boards operated. Our board members are only able to serve a 2-year term. Okay? Item number 42 and 43, we know I know it's going to pass because it is this tendency that others outside of the community know what's best for us. You've been told repeatedly, time and time again, the things that the Black community want, and I'm quite sure it's going to be Black voices that's going to say this morning, this is the best deal we can get. But the very residents that have been living in that community didn't opt out and say that, you know, the best thing for us right now is rental property. The best thing for us would be for those that have lived in that community for years and years and years to see the CRA investment fund, the TIF money, be applied to the community that's there now. Under this number 42 and 43, we have heard it. We know that part of the parade of people that's part of this the EEOC, the Economic Development Council, promised to bring about a whole bunch of jobs. But when they talk to us, they talk about culinary jobs and training that any person coming out of prison, first person that want to go from McDonald's to be on a bus line and a service line, they can get those jobs. Those are not the jobs or the training that's going to provide the type of income that's going to move our people to become economically sufficient. It is not the type of training that we need that's going to help us create generational wealth. You talk about all these wonderful programs that once worked for you, but when we talk about utilizing properties inside of our community to help our people now, you can't get there.
Thank you very much, ma'am. You good? Next speaker is Montesnot, Mrs. Stephanie Pointer, and Mr. Ernest Coney. Good morning, sir. Please state your name.
Uhuru Montesnot. I want to say Uhuru means freedom in Swahili. Montesnot means anything possible. One thing I always tell my kids, you know, you can tell when you're getting older. You always talk about what you tell your kids or your grandkids or something of that nature. One thing I always tell my kids, when you go to school, learn everything the white folks have to teach you. But 100% of it, other than the math and the science, is 100% false. But you're going to have to learn it to pass that test. And today was a good example of that. Today was a good example of that. People come up here crying about some Holocaust reminder, whatever. It's garbage. Straight garbage. It wasn't 6 million Jews in Germany, in Europe, at no time. Period. No such thing. That was basic white on white crime. Nothing more, nothing less. And what's going on in Palestine right now, and these people got the gumption to come up here and talk about, oh, look what happened on October the 7th. They're the ones who did that. No such thing as Hamas. No such thing as Hamas. The only revolutionary organization ever existed in the last X amount of years was the Black Panther Party. Plain and simple. And we seen what the FBI and the police department did to them. We seen what the FBI and the police department did to Martin Luther King, Fred Hampton, and other people. Plain and simple. And the other thing is, not one Jew was killed under those circumstances. Don't let people fool you with the history. Ain't no such thing as a white Jew. No such thing as a white Jew. There's no such thing as a white Christian. That's a fake Christian and a fake Jew. Plain and simple. So run that game with somebody else. And it goes to show I have no discipline because I didn't even come here to talk about that. I just see the people up here talking that garbage while they murdering the people in Palestine in plain and broad daylight. It's offensive. And this city council can't pass a resolution to deal with the situation in Palestine. And they back trying to do the same thing. The same thing Hitler, they say, did to them, that's what they're trying to do to us. Now they're trying to put back the green team and the police team and all other kind of teams back in the housing development. Black people got to fight for that all over again. But what I'm here to talk about today is that they need to defund and abolish child support. Plain and simple. Child support causes more problems inside the black community than anything else. More problems in the police department. Child support, believe it or not. It's a eugenics program, and they've been running it on African people since Saturday, January 4th, 1975. It's not a family reunification program. It's a eugenics program. And this city council need to call over to the courthouse and tell them abolish child support.
Thank you very much, sir. Mrs. Stephanie Pointer, Mr. Ernest Coney, Mrs. Chloe Coney. Good morning, ma'am. Please state your name.
Good morning, Stephanie Pointer. First of all, I want to touch on clarity and consistency in the agenda. If I can dig around in the agenda and I don't understand what something is and I have no clarity on it, then how do we expect any of the other 400,000 people? Because I work hard every single week reading the agenda. And they're like, for example, number 42 and 43 this week. I know what it is now, but I didn't know what it was when I read it because it was very unclear This should be written so that anybody who picks up an agenda for the first time at least has a clue. If they dig in the first 2 documents, they should be able to have a basic understanding of what's going on. Nobody should have to have a master's degree or study the city of Tampa in order to read these agendas. And a lot of times, I have to go into the documents before I can even understand, what are we talking about here? Last week, we had street light installation, $700,000. I went through 6, 7, 8 pages worth of documentation. I couldn't figure out whether we were just paying for labor or whether we were paying for parts, whether we were paying for service. There's no invoice in there. Where did those streetlights go? Where are they going to be installed? I don't know. I still don't know. But it's getting, the one pager helped significantly. Thank you, Councilwoman Hurtak. But I'd also, somebody in one of the departments, when they have multiple bids on something, they put it in the one pager, so I know to look for it, because I like to see how much money we save through the bid process. But many times, I have to search through 30, 40, 70 pages worth of documentation in order to find out who bid on it, whether they actually bid all the way through or not, because sometimes we have 3 bidders, and 2 of them are non-responsive. I'm not real sure what that means, what the definition of non-responsive is. Sometimes there's 5 bids, and 2 of them are non-responsive. I don't know. But I think it should be a little bit more clear. It's gotten worse over time. Number 32, I'm amazed to see that CSX is doing something sweet with the city, that they're actually playing nice. Let's keep that up, because we have a train track all the way from South County, all the way to MacDill Air Force Base. If we can get these people off the streets, off of the roads, in their cars, we are going to be a much nicer city. Speaking of, our folks on Harbor Island, I think it's funny that there was a traffic study done, but you know what? It should have been a pedestrian study, because we needed to look at the number of people crossing the street. We're talking about crossing the street on your feet, not driving in cars. The folks in Harbor Island are the experts on this area. I'm sorry, but the mobility department needs to clean out their ears and start listening to the experts in that area and quit ignoring their problems with this issue. You're talking about making people who live here miserable in order to make people who visit happy.
Thank you very much. Mr. Coney, Mrs. Chloe Coney, Ms. Valerie Bullock. Good morning, sir. Please state your name.
Ernest Coney Jr., I'm the CEO of the CDC of Tampa. I'm glad to be here this morning. I'm in support of consent agenda number 42 and 43 in regards to the East Tampa Live, Learn, Development. My comments come, one, as a volunteer in East Tampa since the late 80s when I was in high school, doing drug marches, empowerment marches, and holding candlelight vigils for families who lost their young ones to gun violence. My comments come as a resident in East Tampa since 2006. My comments come as a person who works every single day to help improve the lives of our residents in East Tampa. One of the questions that I had to resolve in my mind was, do I stay in Tampa? As I was building my career as an actuary working for WellCare, I had to think about a job offer that I had to relocate to DC. What kept me here was thinking about the legacy of the work of my parents. Of course, my dad created the first inner city YMCA on Florida and Palm. And I look at the number of kids that helped he save their lives, and they actually had professional careers in the NFL. Of course, I think about my mother working at Lee Davis Neighborhood Service Center and the great work that she did at the CDC of Tampa. People of my age are not moving back to East Tampa. Why? Because they think about the 80s and 90s when they felt terrorized, when they felt like there was no opportunities to grow, to even start a business in East Tampa. They are not coming back. How do we change this? How do we fundamentally change this? We have to invest in our community. This project delivers on a promise, a broken promise, and deferred dreams. The broken promise was East Tampa has a community called College Hill. The goal was to attract, during segregation, black residents to move to East Tampa. And the promise was, if you move to East Tampa, we will build a college. That was a broken dream that never materialized. Today, we have the opportunity to bring University of South Florida, HCC, and the CDC of Tampa's vocational program, Tampa Vocational Institute, to help provide educational opportunities and training for our residents. When I think about the Fab Lab that we'll also have, we have entrepreneurs who may need to learn manufacturing training. We may need to educate young people on these jobs. how do we begin to attract kids from Middleton High School in engineering and then place them into employment centers? This will begin the beginning of a trajectory of how do we build smart manufacturing districts in East Tampa. So we have to build employment centers, industry centers, and the challenge was to bring the EDC and USF to East Tampa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Mrs. Chloe Coney, Ms. Valerie Bullock, and Ms. Robin Lockett. Yes, ma'am. Please say your
Good
name.
morning, City Council. I'm a woman that wear many hats. Many of you know that I was the founder and the first president of CDC of Tampa, and they celebrating this year be 33 years there. But I'm also one of the founding members of the East Tampa CRA Board.
Please state your name for the record,
Oh, I'm
ma'am.
sorry, Chloe Coney.
Yes, ma'am.
And I like to say that we have residents in that community, Sam Cannon, Van Bess, Diane Hard, Betty Wiggins, and myself and others under the leadership of Thomas Scott. We had to fight for the East Tampa Partnership. We know good and well that many years we've been neglected. We were an afterthought, and we won. So that's the reason we're standing here today, because we have residents and businesses that valued East Tampa. I would like to thank Craig Richards with the Tampa Bay Economic Council for partnering with the CDC and the East Tampa CRA. Too many times I found out that businesses come into East Tampa and want to do it for us, but never with us. Never having organizations that work there, not parachuted into that community. East Tampa been there 33 years. Work with us to create generational wealth for our residents in our community. So I commend him for that. And just like a little history you did with the Holocaust, I need to be here since I'll be 75 this year, if the Lord willing, and been working in East Tampa the last 50 years. To say that CDC was the first organization, along with Bank of America and Alex Sink, to build the first apartments, Oswald Landing. We built single-family homes there. We not only did drug marches and cleanup, but we went and built the laundromat. We tore down the old bar, the Rabbit Foot Bar, and built the Audrey Spofford Youth Center and sent 1,000 kids off to college. CDC owns on Martin Luther King, the East Tampa Business Center, where I go and get my nails done at Perfect 10. We own, because we tore down that old Rumors and Wild Cherry, the strip club on Hillsborough Avenue. And today I stand to proudly say his name, Chloe Coney Urban Enterprise Center. We own the building across the street that Bank of America gave us, and we sold it to Suncoast to bring in more financial institutions to our community, because we have nothing but payday lending and just wealth stealing from our community. So today I want to say I support Agenda 42 and 43, because we need an economic engine in East Tampa. We need a place that we can say that residents can live as they build homes there, create businesses there, and create wealth there. And I'm so glad that CDC is a part of that. And again, I want to say thank you, and I want to see some of this while I am yet alive. So thank you very much, City Council. God bless y'all.
Thank you very much. Ms. Valerie Bullock, Ms. Robin Lockett.
Good morning, Valerie Bullock from East Tampa. I come from a long line of poor folks that believe in education and training to get your life together and to be part of the economic system. And I'm also connected to the poor people, the homeless people, the ones who was on drugs, the ones who've been to prison, and that little girl in East Tampa that's getting molested today. That's who I'm connected to. Y'all did a good job on giving the Donnie $1 million. Thank y'all so very much. My niece and her 4 kids were living in my house. And about a year and a half ago, they got accepted into the Donning program. Kudos. And when are we going to do anything with the Jackson House? I'm getting so tired of extending the paperwork. When is the building, remodeling, restoration coming? Item number 41, Miss Noreen Miller, she died trying to get sidewalks for East Tampa. And now all of a sudden, the Hannah Street gonna get sidewalks. So we'll never have sidewalks in East Tampa. 42 and 43, I'm totally against this project. How much training do we need? When is we gonna get a paycheck? We do need an economic engine in East Tampa, manufacturing jobs with entry-level positions so that the people can get a job and they'll be able to go up and they'll be able to continue to stay in East Tampa. Was there a workshop done? Was there any community engagement? I'm talking about the poor people, the ones who get food stamps, who on welfare and got 4 generations living in their house. I'm not talking about people who already got money. And I'm not talking about these outside people. I'm talking about, was there any community engagement done? Did we get public notice? No, we did not. And we don't need another training center. And why? We got Irwin, we got CDT, we got Tampa Vocational Institution, which is less than a mile from this site right here. How much training do we need? And we also have Works, Career Source, the Skills Center. Every time somebody come in town, they really see Tampa as dumb country bumpkins. We're going to come in here, we're going to get this money, we're going to gouge them for all we can gouge them, and we're going to take the money and run. They never deliver on their products or on their promises. Now, East Tampa, the GPD, it grown by 4.3%, $198 billion right now in it. How much was that money used to provide training of entry-level jobs for the people in my neighborhood? How much was spent on incentives to get them to come? If they like it so much, they ought to come for free.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Ms. Robin Lockett, Chris Kirschner, Steve McElhaney. Good morning, ma'am. Please state your name.
Good morning, Robin Lockett, Florida Rising. I am here to speak on several items, actually. The first item is an important item for me, and that's the Yellow Jackets part. This is an opportunity in regards to the Yellow Jackets for us to do something on it. I understand that Councilwoman Henderson was attempting to put it under CBA, the Community Benefits Agreement, or work something out with that. There's a culture center in West Tampa, Commissioner Gwen Myers is building, right? She has full funding on it, or most of her funding. Federal funding, she's raising money. This culture center, or whatever it's called, it may be called an African American Center, you know, the name may change, that's under the Rome Yard project. We don't need two of the same thing. It's just like two churches on the same street with different religions. We don't need both of them. So the money that you're having set aside for the Rome Yard project, that money can be put to make the reality of that promise that the city made to Coach Wright and the Yellow Jackets. To make them whole. That park needs to be fixed. That park needs to be just fixed, right? They need a building. You have Coach Wright in a what is it? Shed. Not a shed. I can't think of it, but it's not right. He left a building with the concession stand from the one that was in West Tampa, and we need to make him whole. So you have that opportunity to renegotiate that. I am in support of 42 and 43. I saw the Bay News 9 story this morning. Somebody sent it to me. And I have to say that the Columbus Drive development project is exactly exactly the type of investment East Tampa needs. This is the kind of forward-thinking development we've been asking for, the community has been asking for, because again, as long as it has housing, I am for it. If you're including a training, that's just icing on the cake, right? All of the other facilities that offer training may not offer this type of training. So we have to look at that also. So anything that's dealing with housing, if it's coming with housing, I am 100% for it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Mr. Chris Kirschner, Steve Michelini, Pastor Frank Williams. Good morning, sir. Please state your name.
Morning, council members. Chris Kirshner, longtime resident and business owner here in the great city of Tampa. I just wanted to come and speak on behalf of item 42 and 43. And there's so many positives with this project. I don't need to probably belabor all the wonderful attributes associated with it. But I did want to take this opportunity as well to commend the leadership that we have in this city, in addition to the council and the mayor's staff, the EDC, for-profit, not-for-profit organizations that have come together to make this a reality. It's been a long time, a lot of effort on the part of a lot of people. City staff have stepped up to facilitate some of the, it's a significant financial investment for the developers who are involved, and I'm just proud to see it, and I'm proud of our community and everything they've done to make this project happen. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Michelini is passing on his time. Pastor Frank Williams, you are the last speaker today. Pastor Williams, come on up.
I truly thank y'all for this opportunity to say a few words to your.
Please state your name, sir, for the record.
Huh?
Your name, sir, for the record?
Frank Williams. I thought you just called my name.
I know, but for the record. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. I passed out some letters last week, and I wondered was I going to get a response, because I told whoever passed them out to pass one out to each one of the chamber member, but I don't seem to get no response whatsoever. But you know what? We got to understand, people that say they want to help you, this is what they want. 90 days of bank statement, proof of award letter. What's all that about? I don't understand that. The only thing I could show them how poor I am, and look like y'all ought to do something about that, but you don't care. But the one thing we got to understand, when these women and men come up here and speak, they speak on behalf of all of peoples of color, but y'all don't seem to want to hear them. Don't hear nothing we be saying. So we just talking to a wall. But one thing y'all got to understand, we're gonna keep coming. And y'all have to keep listening. If you don't want to listen, get up and walk out like you used to do me a long time ago. And I'll be happy. But we got to understand, we are people, and we are citizens of the United States of America. And we can't be no closer than that. You're supposed to be like brothers and sisters. But your brothers and sisters out of y'all line. That just treating us like we're less than dogs. But we know that we got to do what we can for ourselves and our children, our mothers and our fathers, whoever living, and do the best we can. But y'all don't want to hear nothing we say. I would like to get a reply from y'all, what y'all gonna do about these people coming around here want to steal my home. Please, y'all can do something. Y'all are called city council, ain't you? And if y'all city council, y'all ought to find out something and do the right thing for all of us. I have a lot of things. I wanted to sing a song to one of my brothers that told me he wanted to hear me sing. But it's no time for no singing now. It's time for justification. And that's what we're trying to stand up for. But we know that y'all don't care about us. But who can we go? Can we go down to the county and probably get some better results? Just like the lady spoke about the Jackson house. It's still standing up around there. That regular house should have been tore down a long time ago. But nobody cares. We're not gonna tear it down. We didn't build it up, but y'all got the authority to tear that thing down now. Not wait till tomorrow. Not give us some false promises. Tear that thing down. Get rid of it.
Thank you very much.
In the name of Jesus, y'all do the right thing for all of us.
Thank you, sir. All right. That concludes public comment. We're going to go to our consent agenda. First is Councilmember Vieira with 4 through 8, public safety.
So move 4 through 8, sir.
We have a motion from Councilmember Vieira. Do we have a second from Councilmember Miranda? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Councilmember Henderson, 9
Yes,
through
Chair.
22.
I move items 9 through 22, Neighborhood and Community Affairs Committee.
We have a motion from Councilmember Henderson, second from Councilmember Vieira. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Councilmember Hurtak, 23 through 32.
Yes, I move items 23 through 32.
We have a motion from Councilmember Hurtak, second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Councilmember Carlson? Yes. Yes, ma'am.
I actually want to just mention a couple of things about 42 and 43 before you approve them. Just to, because we had this conversation in the CRA last week about housing and affordable housing. This was $2.1 million that the city used. This is not CRA funding. This is city used to buy this property, which is 2.1 acres. And with that, the cost per unit of 117 units, less than $22,000.
Yeah.
Less than $22,000. This has nothing to do with anything else attached. This is simply the housing portion. And so I just want to remind you all what we can do with money. So every time housing stuff comes up, I'm gonna bring it out because we need to start talking about what we can do with money in all parts of the city. So just obviously I'm in support.
Councilmember Carlson.
Yeah, I'm going to vote for 43, although I object to many things in it. I also was not given a brief on it at all. I don't know if those numbers you just mentioned are true or not. This should have been discussed at City Council in depth. The RFP should have been discussed, whether it was transparent, who the other bidders were, all of that. And sure, we can ask quietly, but the public has concerns about how contracts are let. And sometimes when the city is involved in things, costs do not appear, like they don't like including O&M costs or interest or whatever. Also, I did not see in the documents anyway what the value of the land was that we're leasing at $1 a year. I'm going to vote for it anyway, but I'm not sure that those numbers you just said were true. I'd like somebody to present it to me and present it all in. But I think the administration needs to be a lot more transparent on these things going forward. And we also need to make sure, like someone said in the community, that we're connecting the public. Also, 36, I have concerns about this. We have the Jackson House coming back. I'm not convinced yet that they're moving forward, or they have plans to do anything. And some folks mentioned that in the community. I can vote for this, but again, I'm considering how much City Council has been involved and how much I've been involved in this for the last 13 years. I'm really disappointed that nobody in the administration even reached out to give me a heads up on this. And so I would ask the administration to be more transparent to me and to the public on these matters. And with that,
Wait, Councilmember Clendenin, did you want to speak?
Yes. Were you finished? Okay. I agree with you, Councilman Carlson, on item 36 in the Jackson House. I still think that there's way too much dragging feet on this, and it's just, sometimes if it walks like a duck, it's a duck, and something's not right. So I think something's got to be done. On the issue of 42 and 43, I concur wholeheartedly with Councilwoman Hurtak on this. This is a good project. It's a great balance. It provides a great opportunity for the neighborhood. It provides a great opportunity for the city of Tampa, and the return on the investment, the cost for the investment is clearly it's a bargain for us, and a great idea for partnership with EDC, the community, the city of Tampa. It is a foundationally a good project for the city of Tampa, and I'm wholeheartedly supporting it.
Councilmember Hurtak.
I forgot one thing, 100% of those units will be 80% and below. With quite a few set aside for 50% and below. So this is a fully affordable housing.
Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, Chair. Item 36, the Jackson House. While I fully understand, the public's concerns about the Jackson House, I just want to go on record that the city of Tampa does not own this property. It is owned by the foundation. And we do want to support the efforts of getting it done, but we are not in charge of that at this moment. So I just wanted to say that publicly, because people are coming before us, and I just don't want them to think it's us that is holding it up. We do need to get some clarity from the foundation on the status of why the project has not started, because the funding does exist. So I just wanted to say that, you know, on the record. 42 and 43 is in my district. I met with the EDC very early on as a new member of City Council, and continued to meet with them and have the discussions about this particular project. The housing portion that we're voting on today is a great project. And also, I just want to say, the opportunity in terms of culinary is not the only thing. It is the opportunity to get started and seek those ways that manufacturing training programs can come into that facility. You have to get started. We can't have everything up front, but it is an opportunity there for us to build meaningful, skilled, high-skilled training programs in that facility, and at the same time, we're providing housing. The EDC, this is their first crack at it, and I just want to commend them on making this effort and investing in East Tampa in this way.
Councilmember Moran.
I just want to say this is a rare time that I agree with 4 council members.
Well,
Very
I have to
rare.
make my position now.
Well, you're as bald as I am, I'll tell you that. But anyway, what I'm trying to say here is that when things come around that look too good, sometimes you have to look at them a little bit deeper, and this project is good. I don't come from this location, but I come from close to it in 26th Avenue and 20th Street. And I can tell you, you have to give people an opportunity, a hand up instead of a push down, to keep moving, and no matter what you do in life. And it's incumbent to make sure that everybody has an opportunity. Then it's incumbent of them to take advantage of the opportunity, no matter what it is or what job it is, to be the best you can be to move up the ladder, not down the ladder. So I agree with 42 and 43, and the other one was, that they brought up was item 36. Like Councilwoman Henderson said, this is someone else other than us. However, we're the rudder of the ship, and we're steering in the right direction. Now, I would imagine within the next 6 months, you'll see some movement and I'm taking a speculation that this house will be started to be rebuilt with some of the lumber that's on the property now. It'll be a hybrid of what it is and what it's going to be exactly like it was. That's what I think is going to happen there. And I'm just taking a shot in the dark, like I said earlier. But thank you all for understanding.
Thank you very much. Before we vote, 42 and 43, I'm in absolute support. You know, in the last campaign, which is now 2 years ago, it was all about housing. And this is a perfect example of cost-effective investments for building housing at the 80%. He said somewhere even 50%. So it's chipping away at that goal. So I'm in support of it. I think it's a wonderful start. It's a wonderful project. Item number 36 with the Jackson House. I mean, I've been visiting that property for over 10 years. I've been photographing it. I've been watching it in decline, because if you look at my photos from 2014, which I can pull up, to now, I mean, it's night and day. I toured the inside of that house in 2020. I have photos, which I'm happy to show, and I wouldn't even walk in it today because it's declined so much. As Councilmember Miranda said, in restoring that house, you know, it's like when you do a frame-off restoration on a classic car, you pull it apart. That house will be pulled apart. You'll be shoring up the foundation and the basic infrastructure and using a lot of the original wood. It's wood, and this is a tropical climate, and it'll get restored. Unfortunately, over the years, there have been so many roadblocks because I brought it up with past leaders and current leaders, and I don't know why. You know, I mean, Central Avenue was demolished 50 years ago. So much of that history is lost. My wife, who's studying to get her master's, actually, I think she told me she did a report or an assignment, and it was on Central Avenue. And she was so fascinated by it, and she goes, what can we go see with it? And I go, I can show you the Jackson House, the Longshoremen's Building, a couple of residential homes there's a church that has been restored, but I go, imagine demolishing Ybor City, okay? And that's what's happened. The Jackson House is so significant because of its history, the people that stayed there. It's that one of the last remnants of a bygone era that needs to be protected. So I think we're moving in the right direction, and Councilmember, Miranda, I agree with you. So Councilmember Carlson, you want to?
Yeah, can I just, I'll make the motion, but I just want to add one more thing. starting 4 or 5 years ago, I started presenting Tampa Scorecard, which is at tampascorecard.com. And it was something I worked out with the USF economists and others. And what it showed is, especially in the last administration, the middle class in Tampa mostly shrank. The disparities between men and women and blacks and whites got worse. The home ownership rate was terrible, and we needed to turn that around. And at the time, the EDC was mostly focused on recruiting companies from out of market. Since that time, the EDC has spent several years working on trying to develop a program in East Tampa, and they've worked with HCC and USF and others. And I've had long conversations with Craig Richards, Tony Brown, some of the leadership of the EDC, and also Nicole and Elise when they were here. I know they worked hard on this. I don't object to the project itself. I object to the lack of transparency within the city. And part of that is because the guts of the Economic Development Department left. The people that were working on it mostly left. But still, we need to give more transparency to this kind of thing for the city. But I wish the EDC the best, and I hope that they're successful in this and that it is transformative. So with that, I'd make a motion to move items 33 through 42, including the substitute on 42.
And no, through 43.
43, substitute on 43, sir.
All right, we have a motion from Councilmember Carlson, second from Councilmember Henderson. All in favor? Aye. All right. Next up is Councilmember Clendenin, 44 through 47.
I move items 44 through items 47.
We have a motion from Councilmember Clendenin, second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, item number 48 is to be scheduled, a petition for review for March 27, 2025, 1:30 p.m. right here at 315 East Kennedy Boulevard, 3rd floor, Tampa, Florida. Motion from Councilmember Henderson, setting the public hearing. The petition for review. Second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. We are at 10:38, so we can open the public hearings. May I have a motion to open the 10 and 10:30 public hearings? Motion from Councilmember Hertag, second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor? Aye. Lee Bell is in the house. All right, representing Ybor City. All right, we have the items open. Item number 49 is not a quasi-judicial, but the rest of them are. So if you're here to speak on any item, any public hearing from 49 through 52, please stand, raise your right hand, and we'll swear you in. Yeah. All right, Mr. Shelby.
Yes, thank you.
We need to have a full council for
Yes,
the,
I think we do, and they are in the building.
Let's do a 5-minute recess to make sure that everybody's up here, because there were some tie votes here, so we'll have a 5-minute recess to give them the opportunity. Thank you. I'd like to call this Tampa City Council meeting to order. If we could have a roll call at this time.
Carlson. Hurtak.
Here.
Clendenin.
Here.
Henderson.
Present.
Vieira. Miranda. And Maniscalco.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
All right, before we start the hearings, I just want to quickly take up items 56, 57, 58, and 59, if I can get a motion. We have a motion to approve those items from Councilmember Miranda, second from Councilmember Henderson. All in favor? Aye. Aye, all right. We are gonna start with item number 49. Mr. Shelby.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. This item, number 49, is here pursuant to Rule 6H of Council's rules, in that at the last meeting, which was when the ordinance was being presented for second reading and adoption, it did not get a majority vote per the charter. It was a tie vote, and it returns today because Councilmember Carlson, being absent at the time, has returned. You have a full council now. I should also point, for the purposes of the record, Council, that there is a quasi-judicial rezoning associated with that. Traveling with this, item number 50, and item number 50 did not have a vote when it was presented for second reading and adoption. Rather, the motion was to continue it to today, to run concurrently with this due to the 3-3 vote under Rule 6H. Now, first thing I'd like to do is there are several hearings today where Councilmember Carlson was absent, and I'd like to, for the record, ask Councilmember Carlson, have you had the opportunity to review the record, and are you prepared to vote on these items this morning?
Yes, I was there for the first hearing on these, so I heard the entire presentation, and then I watched the video the other day. There was one that incorrectly said that I voted against it.
That's 49. It says it here. Carlson, Miranda, Maniscalco, no, but it shows that you were absent. I think, is that a scrivener's error?
If I can understand, what's in red on 49 was the first reading vote, and I thank you for bringing that to my attention, just so that everybody knows, and the public also knows, where number 49 is, and it says file number VAC 23-30, the votes in red were no votes. Is that correct, as far as people know? And then what happened is the vote on the last regular meeting on January 9th was a 3-3, and you have the council members who voted at that time voting no, and Councilmember Carlson being absent.
But at the meeting 2 weeks ago, you said that there was a scrivener's error, that it said I had voted no on one of them.
No, that wasn't that.
Which one was
Do you
that?
remember, was it corrected on this one? So what you have appearing on...
This is all correct? Okay, I just want to make sure.
Okay, the clerk indicates that, yes, this is all correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now with regard to this, council, Mr. Malloy, who's present and represents the applicant in this case, brought to my attention a procedural due process issue, and I'd request council to give him the opportunity to both bring it to council's attention and to put it on the record.
Okay, before we do, Councilman Miranda.
I just want to bring one thing up. In 49, you have the, just the naming of the streets with no addresses. When you go to 50, it has the numbers of the street with the addresses on it. So I want to say that because here it says I moved it, which I did. The chairman asked me to move it, and I memorize numbers. I don't memorize streets when I vote on something because there's too many, two names. So the numbers I memorize like phone numbers. So that's what I did.
Thank you. Mr. Malloy, please state your name.
William Malloy, 325 South Boulevard, Tampa, Florida. Council members, I made a mistake last time when we presented the vacation, and I did not bring up our support. We have citizens here directly adjacent to the alley, the affected citizens here who, to speak to this item, they're in favor of it. I didn't bring them up last time. I would very much appreciate if you could hear their voices today.
Is there
So moved to open the public comment.
Second. We have a motion from Councilmember Clendenin, second from Councilman Vieira. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Did you have any, are you the presenter here for item, or the applicant for 49? Do you have anything to add?
Ms. Albert can present, or we can go right to citizens' testimony. The case has not changed since first reading, obviously.
Okay, then we will, if you have nothing to add, we'll open it up to public comment. Whoever wishes to speak, we have nobody registered, so it's all in person. Please come up, state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes. Good morning, sir. Yes,
Also,
Mr. Shelby.
and if there's any issues or comments from the public that require rebuttal by Mr. Malloy, I'm going to ask him to have the opportunity to have the last word before you
You'll
close
have
the
the
public
5-minute
hearing.
rebuttal time.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, sir, please state your name.
Hi, my name's Tony Monk. I've been sworn in. So actually 2 weeks ago, the neighborhood would not have been in support of this, but since then, we've had a collaborative, very productive conversation with the developers. And as part of the whole site plan, they've addressed our concerns. We can talk in the rezoning part about how maybe we can make some of those proposals binding, because right now it's just their word, which is great. But as far as the alley vacation, the neighborhood was never particularly opposed to that. We were more concerned about some of the site plan stuff, access onto the next alley over that brought the traffic further in the neighborhood. And we think procedurally, to get to that conversation, we need to support this alley vacation so that we can go to the next item, which is the rezoning. So we would support the alley vacation, and then we'll come back up here and talk to y'all a little bit about the rezoning and what our concerns are and what the developer has offered, which we accept. And like we said last time, and to Councilmember Clendenin's point, we think this is a good project for the city. We support it. We support the walkability. We support prioritizing people and quality of life over automobiles. We think it's generally pretty good, and it's the best deal on the table for the neighborhood. So we'd hate to undo it, and we'd really like to keep moving forward in a positive way. And we're really encouraged by the developer coming to the table with the neighbors and having that conversation and addressing our concerns.
Mr. Chair.
That's encouraging to hear.
Can I just ask, are you representing your own opinion, or are you on the board of the neighborhood association?
We can
Are you
have,
representing
I'm
officially?
representing both the immediate neighbors and the board, and we can have the board come up here and speak also. So the letter that we submitted is signed by the board. Is that in the record? It was sent earlier this week.
Yeah,
So,
I have a copy
yeah.
of it right
So that represents the immediate neighbors who have their specific concerns and the larger neighborhood board.
Okay, thank you.
So
Thank you very
both
much.
entities.
Thank you very
We're all in
much.
support.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll be
All
back
right.
on the next one.
Next speaker, this is for item 49. This is just the vacating. Mr. Malloy, you said you had supporters, or you're waiting for the rezoning?
I may have used the plural when I meant, oh, these are our supporters.
Do they want to go on record?
Do you want to come up and speak? Okay, so if you have nothing to say now, there's always the rezoning coming up next, so. Okay, well, do you have any rebuttal, sir?
Everything Mr. Monk said, we wholeheartedly endorse. So
Okay.
we've been working very hard for 2
Motion to close
weeks.
from Councilmember Clendenin, second from Councilmember Miranda, all in favor?
Aye.
Councilmember Miranda, would you be comfortable reading 49?
I will now.
Okay.
Item, you gave me the long one, huh?
Just for you, just for you.
That's my penalty. Item number 49, file number FAC 20-30. Ordinance being presented for second reading adoption. Ordinance in the city of Tampa, Florida, vacating, closing, discontinuing, and abandoning that alleyway right-of-way located north of Amelia Avenue, south of Columbus Drive, east of Glenwood Avenue, and west of North Boulevard, within the Platte Ridgewood Park subdivision, city of Tampa, Florida, Hillsborough County, Florida, as more fully described in section 2 thereof, subject to certain covenants, conditions, and restrictions, more particularly set forth herein, providing for enforcement and penalties for violation, providing for definition, interpretations, and repealing conflict, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Second, except for Glenwood Drive. This is just so it's true.
Fine.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion from Councilmember Miranda, second from Councilmember Clendenin. Please record your vote.
Second reading and adoption.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Second
you.
reading and adoption, and re-recording.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, well, this is now for the rezoning. Item number 50, everybody has been sworn in. Go ahead, sir, please state your name.
Good morning, St. Thomas Development Coordination. Item number 50 is REZ 2512. This item is a rezoning request for the property located at 702 West Columbus Drive, 2502 and 2504 North Boulevard, and folio number 1833550005. The request is to rezone from residential single-family 50, commercial general, plan development to plan development for storefront residential, all commercial neighborhood uses. Revisions have been completed and certified plans have been submitted to the clerk's office. Myself and Mobility are here to answer any questions that you all may have.
Any questions for the gentleman? All right. Yes, sir, come on up. No? Okay. Do you have anything to add, sir? Mr. Scott? Okay, please state your name, sir.
Jonathan Scott, Mobility Department. The council asked that the Mobility look into definitely one-waying the alley, and we had discussed that. It's open to the idea, and it could be accomplished through the right-of-way permitting process, which would be separate from this rezoning application, but we did discuss it, and I think there was some discussion with the neighbors as far as that as well, so I just wanted to follow up on that and put that.
Councilmember Hurtak.
I received an email about that, so I just want to say thank you. But can you report what the transportation department decided about that? Is that something that you do or do not support?
We would support it if there was lots of traffic on the alley. It would be a good idea to one-way it.
Okay.
But now there's other discussions that come up. Typically, the alleys are always one-way, two-way, but we were open to that idea, I should say. But it would be a good idea if there was lots of traffic on it.
Okay.
So you were correct in that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much, sir. Yes, ma'am. Come on up. Please state your name.
Thank you. Isabel Albert, representing the applicant, and I've been sworn in. I just think it's important here to just look a bit at the history of this project and how we ended up here today. This is not a large developer. This is a husband and wife team. They have, they really fell in love with Tampa. They're originally from Texas, but then since then they have purchased a house in the area, and they've decided to invest in this community. And by doing that, it started at a corner lot, as you remember a couple of years ago, they started at the corner lot. And we received a lot of support from the neighborhood as well as council. And not only that, they won an award from the Planning Commission for the design and planning portion category of it. And that encouraged them to go forward for additional projects. And it just so happened that those two northern lots became available. And therefore they purchased that. We went through a comprehensive plan amendment. After that, we got unanimously approved by the council and are now led us to this rezoning. As staff stated, we did revise the plan to meet all the revisions on the sheet. And you also heard from the neighborhood and representing the association that we have been in discussion with them as well. And a couple of items that were on this revision sheet, or this agreement that we have between Mr. Satterley and the neighbors, are stuff that could not be implemented on the site plan at this time. We would have to go back to first reading to be enforceable. But we did have an agreement with the neighbors, and the Mrs. Alderman, who's the president of the association, has been in discussion with Mr. Satterley since then, and discussing the type of uses that were coming in and things like that. He kept the neighborhood involved and up to date on the process. But you see on the letter that you received, there's two most important items that you've heard in the past and that you will hear again today. One of them was to add the gate. And the gate was basically just a simple gate that would be closed at all time, but it would be open during the days of solid waste coming in. But otherwise, it would be kept closed to eliminate those traffic that the neighbors talked about. And the other item that was raised at the last hearing said maybe you can add some signage. Is this something that you could agree to, add some signage that prohibits construction traffic in this alley, and the applicant is committed to do so. There's other items that were listed, and I will give the opportunity for the neighbors to speak on those items. But we do have the support, as you heard, the support from this association, but as well as the Tampa Heights. And Tampa Heights is heavily involved in this because they are exactly adjacent to it and expressed their excitement for this project. That concludes my presentation. I understand that the neighbors are going to come in support, and I'm here if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing what the neighbors have to say, so.
Thank you.
If there's anybody that wishes to speak on item number 50, this is the rezoning, please come up and state your name. You'll have 3 minutes. Mr. Monk, please state your name again for the record.
Tony Monk, I've been sworn in, and I'll speak generally for the immediately adjacent neighbors and for the board, and we have other folks. If I miss something, they may come up and speak after me just to fill in some gaps, but we'll try to knock it out in one go. So, yeah, we support the development and the plan as shown, contingent on our concerns being addressed and what Ms. Albert showed. The thing that we need to be most durable is that gate that would limit access. That solves almost all the safety and vision zero and walkability concerns, because it keeps the traffic sort of concentrated to this mixed-use development, the vehicular traffic, and it keeps it from going further into the neighborhood. We've just had a lot of families with young kids move in the area, so they're running back and forth in that area across the street, making use of those third spaces, and we'd like them to be able to continue to do that. So what we'd like City Council to do is to help us make that particular thing durable, whether that means attaching that sketch to the site plan or motioning in, include a gate as discussed. If there's some way today to make that durable and they can continue, that's great. We'd like it to be enforceable because, you know, as things, it might get sold, it might not be the same developer, whatever might happen, and then the gate goes away or it stays open. We want to have a document we can point to and say, hey, y'all, close the gate. That's for trash. It's not for everybody just to come and go and at all hours. So that's the thing that needs to be most durable. Everything else is pretty resolvable through the site plan review process if this council will just request that city staff work in good faith to address these concerns, and I'll just run through them real quick. Construction traffic was already mentioned. I don't know if there's much that city staff and council can do about that. That's going to be more us working with the developer. But to request anything we can code enforcement help out, or can the inspection department help out during construction? Like, hey, the developer said they weren't going to drive all their heavy trucks on that alley behind the houses. That'd be super. The one-waying of the alley, we do have a neighbor at 2503 North Glenwood, and the way that their garage and driveway is configured, one way would make it where they can't really get in and out. And that goes to the next point. From a Vision Zero perspective, we'd really like to keep that alley pavement as narrow as it can be, because we don't want it to look like a main driveway to the development or the neighborhood where people just come on through there, and it's, you know, as y'all have learned in your time, the wider pavement is, the faster people go. So as narrow as we can keep that, thinking about Vision Zero, traffic calming, safety, that would be super. I don't think that's anything we need to make on the site plan, but just getting that, just a request to staff perhaps to work in good faith. We'll work with staff on the grand tree roots, and then the exterior light fixtures about not seeing the lamp light shining at you. We can work with that through the permit review process. So yeah, getting that gate is the thing that needs to be most durable. So we'll be interested to know with council or however y'all might be able to help us out with that. And I'll yield in case anybody else.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Henderson, Councilmember Clendenin.
Thank you. I guess this is for our attorney. Can they make, a change in the site plan at this point in the process?
Good morning, Kate Wells for the legal department. With respect to the request to include a gate on the site plan, that would require the site plan to be amended.
Right.
And for this item to go back to first reading. I appreciate that everybody is supportive of the project, wants to expedite approval, but simply attaching this letter to the site plan would not be any indication to staff or anybody else as to what the intent is.
Correct.
So it'd be my recommendation, if council is supportive of the project, that, and the developer is receptive to amending the site plan to show the gate and include a note about how it's to be operated, that be included in council's motion, and this can go back to first reading today, and then second reading scheduled within 2 to 3 weeks, whenever the next regular meeting is.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Just with regard to, and I don't know whether staff will address this, but with the other items, in terms of working with the developer between first and second reading, from my understanding, the way things work is everything should be in the revision sheet by a direction of council between first and second reading, if it is in fact enforceable, it needs to be placed on the site plan.
What I heard were the remaining items would be addressed during the permitting process. So they would not need to be included on the site plan.
Councilmember Clendenin, you had your microphone on.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to reiterate what Ms. Wells just said, because it was my understanding, listening to public comment and the applicant, that this would be addressed informally during the zoning process, and after the zoning process, you guys were going to. In other words, if this was a choice between sending this back to first reading or you guys working out this process now, you heard something differently?
Yeah, I mean, Ms. Wells just said that we have to Yeah, basically, we would do a first reading today,
And then
right
in
now.
2-3 weeks.
But then it would go back to a second reading.
Yeah, in 2 weeks.
That's my understanding. But I'm saying, do they want us to go back to a first reading today and then go back, have to come back to us again to make these changes? Is this?
Council members, William Malloy again. If I followed correctly, and I'm not sure that I entirely did, are we treating today as possibly a first reading? And then so we could come back for second reading with just change on the sheet?
Yes.
Absolutely, we're all
Okay,
for it.
so everybody's good with that?
Councilmember
Okay.
Rattay. No?
No, that's basically, I just wanted to make sure we were all, and all I wanted to do was ask and see if that was acceptable to the applicant, and so he answered my question.
That is wonderful. It's more than acceptable.
You know, if it sounds like that's the case, if we can bring it to first reading today and then put those items on the site plan that were mentioned, not the permitting items, but,
What we
you know,
can put on the site plan, yes, sir.
I will gladly support it and support it at second reading. I see the concerns of the neighborhood, people that live right there adjacent. I think it's a great project, but when neighbors come out, I try to listen. My voting record is not perfect, but, I want to be respectful. So if the attorneys, the applicants, you're amenable to taking it to first reading today and then adding those on the site plan for second reading, you'll have my support all the way through. Yes, ma'am.
And I do want to say, again, I like to say it out loud and on the record, how much I appreciate when developers work with the neighborhood to finalize even these little things. It can make the difference in a project, and as you've seen, and I just want to say thank you for doing that and being not just reaching out, but staying connected through the whole process. It's a night and day from the first time this went through, and I just wanted to say thank you for that, and we want to encourage that moving forward.
Thank you. It's our whole team and the citizens. They're great too.
Wait. Is there anybody else in the public that wishes to speak? Yeah, I want to make sure we get all public comment. Yes, ma'am, come on up and state your name.
Candace Porter, and I live at 2503 North Glenwood, so I'm in the garage that everyone's talking about, and I won't be able to get in and out of my garage. And also my 16-year-old daughter, if she has to pull out onto Columbus, it's not feasible. So it sounds like
a lot of hours with the developer and the owner, Teams calls at nights during our off hours, putting the kids to bed, trying to get this to work out. So we really are appreciative of the dialogue. We want to, like my husband said, Tony Monk, we want to make sure that the construction access is limited on that alley. We also want to make sure the lighting is taken care of, so it's down shielded. Right now, we have the gas station and all the other stores. It just blares right into our backyard. We want to make sure that we maintain the two-way for the alley for our neighbors. And we think this is a win-win, but the gate is absolutely a necessity because of the traffic going into the neighborhood even further, protecting the kids, protecting the animals, protecting everybody in the area. So we are looking forward to this, but we are very happy that we've been able to come to a conclusion. So thank you for your time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am. Come on up, please state your name.
Hello, my name is Jessica Hines. I live at 708 West Amelia. I've been sworn in. I live across from, not on the alley that the rezoning, but I live across from the development. I'm also the secretary of the Ridgewood Park Civic Association, but I'm here really to talk more on behalf of the immediate neighbors that have small children. I have 2 toddlers. So safety was the biggest concern of this. With the vacation of the alley and the traffic coming further into the neighborhood, that was our biggest concern. And I think all of our discussions with the developers and the gate solves that. So we're fully supportive of this project, the rezoning, as long as that includes that gate.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Motion to close from Councilmember Clendenin, second reading. Wait, do you need rebuttal, sir? Yes, sir. All right. Yes, ma'am?
I just have a question. Staff, they seem to be looking at the site plan. I just want to make sure, can we move forward, or do we have conversation, like what's?
Abby Feely, Administrator, Development and Economic Opportunity. I was not sworn in for this because I did not plan to speak on it, but I'd like to be able to support staff in getting this where it needs to be. I do, thank you. Okay, so in supporting what Ms. Wells, and this needs to go back on first reading. Unlike your typical readings, there's no revision sheet, because the revisions are coming forward from the developer, not from staff, as staff hasn't reviewed some of what's been going on. But let me just add a couple things. And I'm gonna let Sam read all the conditions in, but I'd like to talk to a couple things that have been said. We'll work that out at permitting, we'll work that out at permitting. If there's an expectation being placed on this development, I need to know that now. I can't then put it into permitting and the expectation of this board is not fulfilled at that time. So one thing I'd like to talk about, and once I say this, Mr. Malloy may want to have rebuttal conversation. So one thing is that alley is a 16-foot platted alley. It is not shown on the site plan. The dimension is not. I just did talk with Miss Albert. That does need to be added in between first and second reading. And I'll have, Sam can read in everything collectively. I just want to talk to a couple of these things. So I hear Mr. Monk in what he has said about making it more narrow. As you all know, we've dealt with this in West Tampa, where you need to leave enough dimension in the alley for them to be able to pull in and out of their driveways and not create a visibility or other problem. So
I don't think I heard him say to shrink it. I thought I heard him say to keep it as narrow as possible, which to me, I understood to mean leave it where it is now. Can you? Yeah, that is exactly what he meant.
okay, so the 16-foot would remain.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
good.
Yeah,
And
he's saying he doesn't want it widened. Paved.
what is the paved dimension?
As narrow as possible.
So this is gonna need to go through the right-of-way permitting process when they change or address the alley. I can't tell you that right-of-way is not gonna say the safest is 14 foot or 12 foot or whatever. It is at 16 with 10 foot of asphalt right now. When they improve that for the traffic that's gonna come off of this project and other stuff, and probably accommodate for stormwater, that 10 feet may change. I can't speak to what the right-of-way permitting process is gonna do on that, so.
But we can say that it would be no wider than 16 because that is what is allowed for, platted. Okay.
That is what is platted,
Okay.
and that is where the improvements should take place, within that 16 feet. Be that the pavement, plus any stormwater, grading that may need to be done, or the crown of that. That is correct. It would not be wider than 16, but I think what the neighborhood's been living with right now is 10, and that's what they'd like to see kept.
Yes.
But I don't want to give the expectation that once it goes through right-of-way permitting, that it may not need to be adjusted. So I wanna, I
Okay,
wouldn't
and
put,
so-
the
so-
commitment they were asking for was minimize pavement width in alley for traffic calming, pedestrian safety, and vision zero. I mean, if the developer wants to commit to that, I would add to the end of that it is subject to the city's right-of-way permitting process.
And then the only thing I would ask is that there's communication with the neighborhood on how they can put their input when that part comes up. Like when the right-of-way, how does the neighborhood connect with that right-of-way permitting at the time? And I think that's gonna be through staff, but I think after this, I would love if someone from staff could speak to the neighborhood and let them know how they can be a part of that particular process.
Mr. Scott?
Yeah, Jonathan Scott, Mobility Department. That can be a discussion we would have with the neighborhood during
Okay.
that process.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anything else? Yes,
The
ma'am?
only other comment I might suggest is that the developer could have the option, if they wanted to sign the construction route so that it's clear that there should not be construction trucks in a certain area. They could put that on their fencing, or they could put that in another way just to be able to fulfill that commitment. I know that was another one that was talked about as potentially being wishy-washy. So that would be open to Mr. Malloy and whether or not his team would be open to that. And then other than that, what Sam will do is read in everything else for you, and then you would make the motion with the revisions as read in by staff.
Okay, thank you.
So, Sam or Ms. Feely, is the issue with the gate, it being institutionalized in perpetuity between first and second reading, you all will have that language, or you'll work with the developer to have that language? Yeah. Just want to make sure.
Oh, so with the addition of a note that the gate, and can I just, is the gate gonna be set back so that there won't be a queuing problem in the alley? I'm sorry.
Yes, they're gonna
Okay,
set it back.
okay, all right. So, I would say that you could add as a council condition to this rezoning, that as a council condition of the approval, and it would, the note would say exactly that the gate must be installed and must be maintained through the life of the project, or something
Okay, and so
along
that's
those
something that
lines.
we have to do as a council, not something that they're gonna do between first and second reading between. It's in your motion. Okay, very
They-
good, okay.
they
That's
can.
what I thought.
Yeah,
I just
it
wanted to
will
make
be
sure
in your-
that we all understood that. Okay.
Yeah, it will be in your motion, but I
Yeah.
think the question of perpetuity and the ability to remove that.
Right.
You can kind of solidify that with you making it a council motion, because if it is, optional at the
Right.
point of the developer, I mean, if they take it up, I think what is being said here is that you want it installed and you want it to remain, and you
Right.
want it to be operational. So if that's the case, then I would probably add that.
Okay, and just so that I understand, what you were saying about the alley, that is separate and apart from the process that we're here talking about today. So we hear the neighborhood's concerns about the alley, but that process is going to be handled as a separate issue from this rezoning application.
Yes, it's on public property,
Okay.
and typically the rights of way and any improvements outside of the boundary of the
Yeah.
private property are handled through the right-of-way.
Okay, I just wanted to kind of bring that back into close so people understood that it was separate and apart from the application process today. Thank you.
And Jonathan Scott, Mulberry Department, one more time, I had misspoke, the applicant was looking to put that gate right at the property line, not set it back, and have it slide in, not to affect the right-of-way or swing out or anything, just to kind of clarify that a little bit.
Does that require I guess the question would be for staff, whether that has to be specific language with regard to the setback on the site plan or not? As a direction of council, as a condition?
So it's my understanding they're not proposing for it to be set back. The drawing that was attached to the correspondence from the neighborhood association showed the gate on the property line. That's what Jonathan Scott just confirmed, and that the gate will slide in and out. There will also be a note on the site plan with respect to those days which the gate can be left open. So with regard to use of the gate. But it's my understanding that the gate will not be set back.
Thank you.
All right, after hearing all that, any further rebuttal, Mr. Malloy, anything to add? If not, we'll have a motion to close.
Here he goes.
No, I think we're good, thank you.
We have a motion to close from Councilmember Clendenin. Do we have a second?
wait, I
Second,
think we have
Councilmember
to have-
Miranda. Whoa, yes?
I think we have to have the conditions read in.
I think that's after.
That has to be by, well, I think it should be read in as part of the record before you close.
All right, we'll retract that motion.
I retract my motion to close.
All right, so, Mr. Shelby,
Yes,
you say on the record here?
yes. I think they're gonna be finalizing it, but as part of your motion, to make it enforceable and to give it, as Ms. Wells said, permanency, it has to be a motion and a condition of council, so stated on the site plan.
All righty, we'll just wait for Mr.
We had indicated that.
I mean, I'll just state for the record that I still, as I said in the first hearing, I really am impressed by this project. I feel that, when you look at this project in the critical intersection that this is being developed on, it's a perfect balance between housing and commercial and street-facing development, transit-oriented development, and a perfect integration with the surrounding neighborhood, and will end up being something that I think is going to be a jewel for both the Ridgewood Park and Tampa Heights. I wish other developments in this area would learn from this as far as the type of, again, that mix, the appropriate mix of development between residential and commercial to allow the amenities for the people that live in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, one moment as they wrap it up. Wait, when Ms. Feely gives a thumbs up.
One second.
Yes, ma'am. I don't know if they went after me. I don't remember politically. about this cold weather. It's gonna be a cold Gasparilla. Indeed.
I'm thinking about having to like buy proper, like, you know, warm undergarments. We don't have to do that here.
Undergarments.
Yeah, like the, you know, the little.
Petticoat.
No, like all those fancy new little, like, they have all this technology now, like all the thin
Costco.
t-shirts and stuff.
Costco. They have that. They
Oh,
have that. And it's
okay.
cheap, yeah.
Good to know.
This was not a commercial endorsement for Costco.
That's a boom. That's a boom. You see the father and son, the Costco guys? That's a boom. If it's bad, that's a doom. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, same comments on
Yes,
coordination. I think we got these worked out. Bear with me while I try to read these out really quickly. So, revision number 1 would be adding the width of the alley, showing that it's 16 feet wide. That would be the first one. Second one would be adding a note to the site plan that the alley entrance to the development, where they would add a gate, that would be only for, they would add a gate and that entrance would only be for solid waste. The next one would be that.
Sam, can I add to that, that it will be installed and maintained for the life of the project?
Yes. Okay, the second one would be that construction traffic on the Glenwood Alley, which is the alley off of the entrance to the subject site, will be signed for construction traffic not to enter or to use the alley at all. The other one would be to minimize the pavement width in the alley for traffic calming, and that it is subject to permitting, right-of-way permitting. And then the other note would be to preserve the grand tree roots. We would add a note that the grand tree roots would be preserved at above-grade construction techniques for any new pavement in the alley within the tree protective zone. And then we would also add a note to the site plan regarding exterior lighting features so that there would be no spillage onto the neighboring properties. And that would be all the revisions that we would have done between first and second reading.
Okay.
All right, is there anything else to add into the rebuttal, or you're good, we can close?
No, we are more than fine with those conditions.
We have motion to
Bring it
close.
back.
Councilman Clendenin, second Councilman Miranda, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Councilman Vieira, would you be comfortable
Yes.
reading 50?
And I wrote down the revision as well as I could, but because I knew this was mine. So I move for first reading and adoption and ordinance rezoning property in general vicinity of 702 West Columbus, 2502 and 2504 North Boulevard, folio number 183355-0005 in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification RS 60, residential single family, GC, commercial general, and PD plan development 2, plan development storefront residential, all commercial and neighborhood uses, providing an effective date with the additional, and please, council, if I got
I
any
think
of
you
the-
can just say, adopt his revisions.
Okay, then I adopt the revisions. Okay, there you go.
We have a
Much
motion from
easier.
Councilmember Vieira, second Councilman Miranda, since this is a first reading, let's do a roll call vote.
Miranda.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Hurtak.
Yes.
Clendenin.
Yes.
Henderson.
Yes.
Vieira.
Yes.
And Maniscalco.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously. Second reading and adoption will be held on February 20th, 2025 at 10 o'clock a.m. in City Council Chambers, 315 East Kennedy Boulevard, 3rd floor, Tampa, Florida, 33602.
Thank you very much. What? If you want. It is, on the record, it's John F. Kennedy Boulevard. Used to be Grand Central.
Who that?
I just saw it on our envelopes, the old envelopes that we have.
Yeah, I think John F. Kennedy it was renamed in 64 or 66. When was Grand Central renamed to Kennedy Boulevard?
After he came here, after he was assassinated.
Yeah, it was one of those.
It was Lafayette and Grand Central.
I guess we don't care about Lafayette anymore.
We should, but. All right, item number 51. Is there anybody here for 51? Okay, yes, sir.
Yes.
What? Oh, there's another 6-8. Pardon? There's a tie, okay. Yes. Council, item number 51, REZ 2452, again, was a tie vote on January 9th pursuant to Rule 6H. And again, as you see, the names in red after the file number are the votes at the first reading, and the discussion at the end is the vote of a 3-3 tie. And Councilmember Carlson being absent, he has previously indicated that he is prepared to vote. And what you have now is you have the presentation complete. Does council have any questions for anybody of staff or the applicant at this time?
Councilmember Hurtag.
Yes, I wanted to talk about my change of vote, and I wanted to read into the record my reasoning behind it. Specifically, considering what we just approved on another corner of Columbus, I find that section 27-136, subsection 1, this does not promote the efficient and sustainable use of land and infrastructure with careful consideration of potential adverse impacts to the surrounding impacted neighborhood and cultural resources, and which to me goes with number 2, subsection 2, which is allowing the integration of different land uses and densities in one development that would not otherwise be provided for or allowed under general zoning district established in this chapter, which encourage compatibility in overall site design and scale, both internal and external to the project. And what I mean by compatibility, for me, the compatibility is the compatibility with business development, and how there just isn't enough in this particular development. Which goes to subsection 7, promoting a more desirable living and working environment than would be possible through the strict application of minimum requirements of other zoning districts. And I just believe wholeheartedly there's just not enough commercial in this development when it's shown that surrounding developments have been able to include more commercial.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Clendenin?
I guess I'm going to reiterate my lack of support for the same very reason. You know, it's interesting, in the proposed ordinance, it discusses residential, you know, basically mixed use with commercial storefront, commercial general uses and all. But it's so disingenuous because the amount of commercial space and storefront space is so de minimis that, you know, I mean, honest to God, let's just be honest about this and call it what it is, and that's just, you know, apartments on a very important intersection in the city of Tampa, without the infrastructure and the things that are vibrant neighborhoods in these commercial districts that Councilman Carlson's talked about so often, of creating these intersections of viability and something that really is an asset to the neighborhood. I think it's a beautiful project as far as aesthetics. I think that the density and massing of the project is appropriate, and I think that some of the modifications they made, being concerned with the neighborhood, was really good, well thought out and insightful. My just biggest concern, again, this is a major transportation corridor. It's a very important intersection in the city of Tampa. God be willing, before I leave here, we'll have a streetcar on its way to being in front of this, and it'll be an integral part of transportation in the city of Tampa, and as such, it should have amenities befitting its location.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, we go to
the applicant.
The applicant. Applicant? Hello, sir. Please state your name.
After morning. My name is Tyler Hudson. My address is 400 North Ashley Drive. In conversations with Mr. Shelby yesterday, we did not know that we were going to have an opportunity to speak at all today. It's our understanding that when a vote starts and it's 3-3, you immediately go into the roll call vote. So I don't know why I'm standing here. I'll say that based on the last presentation, I believe as a matter of pure law that you could characterize this hearing right now as a first reading. And I would ask Marty to confirm whether or not that is true.
No, it's been advertised as a
second reading.
It's been advertised as a second reading. It's also pursuant to a tie vote, and the remedy for that is set forth in the adopted rules of procedure. So I guess the opportunity was if there was something you needed to address for the purposes of the record, in which you did. You're saying as a matter of law, this should be a first reading?
We understand the concerns of this council. We need to move this project forward. We are going to be filing a non-substantial change determination regarding retail to increase it. If this could be characterized as a first reading, then we'd add it to a revision sheet. But from my understanding, since this was advertised as a second reading, the last hearing was also advertised as a second reading, we can't make that change.
Well,
If council wants to adopt a specific condition, there's one that we're willing to put on the record, but
well, the question is
The revision
there
sheet was
something
approved
that, is
already.
there, if it's something if it's your position, and again, Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney, if it's your position that the project will change between first and second reading,
this is second reading.
so then is it your request with specific changes, just as we did in the last hearing, to set forth what the conditions are that would take place, not on a revision sheet, but as
A motion of council, yes.
So is it your request then to do that at this meeting, to set forth
Yes.
what the changes would be?
Yes.
And to give council the option, if they agree to those changes, to set it for first reading? And then hear it with
So-
the revisions, just as I'm sorry.
Council, we'd like to take the vote on the project as it is. And once the quasi-judicial period is over, we'll talk to you all about what changes might happen to the project afterwards, but nothing has changed between first and second reading. Councilman Carlson's here and is ready to vote, and we'd like to call the question. We'd like to move forward with this project. There can be changes afterwards, if they are non-substantial, but we'd like to move forward.
Councilmember Henderson, you had your vote,
I was just
microphone?
gonna ask our city attorney, is that even a possibility? Because this is not a gate, this is infrastructure, between first and second reading.
This is
Administrative approval to determine whether certain changes to the site plan are or are not substantial changes. If it's determined by staff that the requested change is not substantial, then they would be allowed to get that change administratively. If it's determined to be substantial, it would require them to come back with another rezoning. But at this very moment, I don't know what it is they're proposing to change.
Right.
So, and they're asking council to vote on the rezoning application as submitted and as approved at first reading.
Councilmember Carlson.
Thank you.
Tyler, is there anything, I know what you're saying, but is there anything that you want us to add to the motion? Or you just want to wait to do the substitute later?
Yeah, I mean, let's be transparent. Like, we're trying to get this project approved. We already had 4 applications to go through. This is an exceptionally challenging project on the most underdeveloped piece of land, I think, in the city of Tampa. What we were going to do through a sub-change, if this is the second reading, because we have a very serious time crunch. The integrity is all I have with you guys, and when I say we have a time crunch, we have a time crunch. We have got to move forward on this project. We're willing to add another 1,000 square feet of retail, and we're willing to add a note to the site plan that a sub-change can never be used to decrease the amount of retail. Because people do sub-changes all the time. It happens all the time because these PDs are very, very rigid sometimes.
Ms. Wells, is it possible to add that now or not?
The aggregate square footage wouldn't change. It would be 1,000 square feet less of multifamily because we're taking a piece of the lobby and we're going to make it another 1,000 square feet of retail for an aggregate total of 5,500 square feet, locking the door and throwing the key away because we're adding a note about the prohibition of a sub-change. If we can accomplish that, and today is a first reading then, and we're fine doing a second reading at a subsequent date, but we can't come back in 5 weeks for a new first reading. We cannot do that.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Wells.
Kate Wells, Legal Department, as council did with the previous rezoning, if there are conditions that the developer wishes to add to the site plan, those can be added. Today can be first reading, and then it would come back to you for second reading with those changes shown on the site plan.
So Tyler, what do you want to do? What's your request?
We want to be transparent and get this done, and so if we are hopefully, exceptions make for bad rules. This is a weird situation with a vote switch and an absence, so we're in this kind of purgatory. We want you all to approve the project that you saw the last time at first reading with the addition of 1,000 square feet of retail for a total of 5,500. That's the new piece number one. The new piece number two is an addition. We have the text here. Whoa, that's the last one. Sorry. The red note there, which we can put into the record, prohibiting the utilization of a non-substantial change determination application to convert retail to multifamily.
But you want this to be second reading, right? And she said that you.
No, we are fine with this being for, I mean, if you can do this by second reading, I don't know how you do that, because the revision sheet, you can't. This is the first reading now, if you guys adopt this. That's what we understand.
Are you okay with that?
We are okay with that.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
If you don't mind, if you can keep that up. just so-
Yeah, well, let me just hand it, someone can read it. instead of-
Pass that around.
We saw it, yeah.
But somebody needs to read it.
All right,
Or you could just do it as set forth by, do you have,
okay.
here's the rest of it? Wait, what am I looking at? This is page one, page two, page three, and you're submitting these into record. Why don't you do that at the microphone, please? Mr. Thomas has handed me 3 pages. Mr. Thomas, it says revised revision sheet. It's dated January 23rd, 2025.
Yeah, Sam Thomas, Development Coordination. Myself and the applicants had been working on this in preparation for this. They had sent me these revisions ahead of time this week, and we have reviewed them. We are comfortable with these revisions, and then they can add them between first and second reading. We can review them even further and make sure there's no additional modifications that need to be made.
Can you remind me of the total square foot is 400?
5,500.
5,500. Excuse me, I'm not going to testify. Mr. Thomas, that's something staff should be able to tell you based on what's in the record.
It's available, it's for.
No, I'd like to hear it in the record, please, so that all the council members hear it.
440,000?
The total gross square footage
Of
of
what?
the total square footage of the is 247,086 square
Of
feet.
and what does that number represent?
That is the entire gross square footage of the development.
Of the development, thank you.
And the retail was 4,000, just adding another fact.
The retail was 4,500. They're increasing it by 1,000 to make it 5,500.
Okay.
Yes, sir, Councilman Moreno.
I'm just gonna say this, this is the location there where there used to be the Bondi, warehouse or something, and a couple other stores across the street is a bicycle shop, is that the one? I was gonna vote for it, I'll tell you why. When you look at history, Ybor City and downtown were the only 2 shopping areas you could buy at one time. All of a sudden, Britain Plaza comes, Northgate comes, and they both, Ybor City and West Tampa, demised, nothing. It went to hell, all of it. Then the other 2 that were open, Brent Plaza and Northgate, the malls come in. What happened to them? The same thing happened in Ybor City and downtown. Now, what's happening to the ones that are malls? They're going up to here. You know why? Because you can pick up the phone and the next day they deliver it to your house. It's a different world we're living in. And I love the streetcar, and I hope it comes back with 50-some miles that we had before. However, I don't know if that's ever going to happen. I'll vote for it, but I don't know if it's ever going to happen. So that's why I was going to vote for it, because we're basing on ideas that are maybe good, but from my history and understanding what the retail business has done, this shoe cost me $48. Delivered to me in 7 days. So it's going downhill whether I like it or not. That's not my decision to make. The public makes that decision to make. And it's getting tougher and tougher to make things succeed in different areas. That's all I'm going to say. When you have parking reduction, do you really think that people are going to leave their cars home? I don't. But we have parking reductions that we give away. So that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Mr. Thomas? Anything to add?
The only thing I think I would say to add to the revision sheet as well is to update on the site plan itself to show the change where the additional square footage is going to be shown. Okay. Never mind, I was told that it is not relevant.
We're taking space from the lobbies.
Does the lobby
Same
face
comment development
Columbus or
coordination,
Florida?
the lobby is on Florida Avenue, it's in between the two retail spots right in the middle.
No sidebar conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Do we take public comment on this, Mr. Shelby? All right. Okay. Is there anybody here in the public that wishes to speak on this item? If not, I'll go to rebuttal if anything else is needed to say.
Provisions between first and second reading.
Good morning, Council. Tyler Hudson for the record. I think it's all been said. Nothing further on rebuttal. We accept the changes that have been discussed just now. Thank you.
Okay. May I have a motion to close?
Motion to close.
We have a motion to close from Councilmember Clendenin, second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Who would like to read this item? This is 51 and it has,
I can read it.
Councilmember Carlson.
We look so much alike.
Marty, you'll just have to remind me what I have to add. Do I need to make the motion that it goes to first reading, or?
Yes,
Just
this
on
is
first
now
reading.
on for first reading consideration, and all you have to do is end the revision sheet as
Okay.
presented
So
by
I
staff.
move number 51, file number REZ 24-52, ordinance being presented for first reading consideration, an ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 205, 207, 209 East Columbus Drive, 2301, 2303, 2307, and 2315 North Florida Avenue, 204 and 206 East Amelia Avenue, and folio number 191-372-0000 in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in Section 1 from zoning district classification RM24 residential multifamily and CI commercial intensive to PD plan development storefront residential commercial, all commercial general uses, commercial parking, providing an effective date, plus the revision sheet.
We have a motion from Councilmember Carlson, second from Councilmember Vieira. Roll call vote.
Carlson,
Yes.
Hurtak,
No.
Clendenin,
Yes.
Henderson,
No.
Vieira,
Yes.
Miranda, and Maniscalco.
Yes.
Motion carried with Hurtak, Henderson, and Miranda voting no. Second reading and adoption will be held on February 20th, 2025 at 10 o'clock a.m. in City Council Chambers, 315 East Kennedy Boulevard, 3rd floor, Tampa, Florida, 33602.
And council, the resolution regarding the bonus provision agreement will travel with that to come back at second reading.
So we'll move that at second reading.
Yes.
Thank you very much. We now have a vacating petition on item 52. Mr. Wigginton, are you taking that up?
No, sir, staff should be online.
Okay.
And give the first presentation.
Okay.
Yes, good morning, Council. Eric Cotton, Development Coordination.
Yes. Councilman.
May I share my screen real quick, please?
And Mr. Cotton, just really fast if I may, I have a 12:30 appointment for the city with Fire and Chief Bennett, so just FYI, I don't know how long this will run, but just FYI.
We have a lot of public comment. I'm kidding. I don't know. Wait. Go ahead, Mr. Cotton. Were you sworn in, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you see the presentation on the screen?
Yes, please, they'll make it bigger for us in just a second, but I know it's up, it's coming.
Okay, thank you.
Wait, they're working on it. Okay,
Okay.
they're bringing it up. All right, a vacating request. Go ahead, sir. Please, yeah, there we go.
Yes. Yes, sir. Eric Cotton, Development Coordination. I'm here with Patrick Canavan from the Right-of-Way Department, our right-of-way department. This is a vacating for VAC 2416 for a property generally located at 2039 East Mulberry Drive. It's about a 16,000 square foot vacating. As you can see on the On the screen, this is the proposed vacating request. Basically, it's a portion of Mulberry Drive that's being requested to be vacated, south of Bird, east of 19th, and adjacent to the river, west of Rowlett Park. The application was filed with our office on June 18th, and the goal is to accurately reflect the right-of-way. In the staff report, if you look at that, there's a note that says the road was not built on the platted right-of-way, but built across private property. I believe Jonathan Scott from Mobility is here to address any questions about that specific issue. There's a city-owned lot on the south side of Mulberry Drive that's requested to be vacated. This is the aerial of what's being proposed. The petitioner's property is highlighted in red. The part that's being proposed to be vacated is yellow. This is a look at the property from East Mulberry Drive, looking southwest. This is southeast from Mulberry. The property is currently vacant. And staff had no objections to the vacating request. There are easement requests from both water, transportation, and wastewater. And when it comes for any kind of development or anything else on that property, from the Natural Resources Act, they'll have to comply with Chapter 27 in regards for tree preservation and site design. I believe that concludes our presentation. If you have any questions, we're here to
Any questions
assist.
for Mr. Cotton? No? Is there an application? Yes, sir, come on up. An application. Is there an applicant? There is an application. Yes, sir, please.
Good morning, Harvey Halpern for applicant. I thank you, Mr. Cotton, for covering what I believe should hopefully be the most straightforward thing the council hears this morning. Just to kind of drive the point home a little bit, this is the 1927 plat for the area. The highlighted area is the right-of-way applicant seeking to vacate. To be a little bit more clear about the misalignment that applicant is referencing, you can see the gray, which is the current paved right-of-way, and then the pink, which is the platted right-of-way. Frankly, it's just not where the original plat was set, and it's impacting applicant. And then lastly, I believe everyone's already seen this image from staff, but just a clear color image of the right-of-way to be vacated, or requesting to be vacated. And that's all I have.
Any questions for the applicant? Sir, are you part of the application or are you public comment?
Sir, this is the applicant
I
himself.
am the applicant.
What's your name, sir?
Mike Charles.
And do you have anything to add?
It's been a long process.
Please come up to the center so the microphone picks you up.
It's been a long process. We appreciate finally getting it squared away. It is a real process to get it done, and we're finally finished.
Thank you very much, sir. Is there
Now we
anybody-
can build houses and you guys can tax them and spend the money.
But we're capped at 3%. Is there anybody in the public that wishes to speak? Yes, ma'am, come on up. Yes, ma'am, please state your name.
Good morning, Stephanie Pointer. You know, I probably don't have an issue with this, maybe. What I have a problem with, and I sent emails and I talked to Ron Wigington yesterday. So this is the staff report. The staff report says it says stormwater. But Mr. Cotton just presented that wastewater, water, and something else were on there, but not stormwater. But then when I look in Acela, which you guys are not allowed to do, I see that this part is cut off and stormwater says you can't vacate this part. But I didn't see a map put up there that was retaining this part of this easement. I have a huge procedural issue called this, the notification that goes out to the neighborhood does not go in Acela. It only goes to the clerk's office. So if I were to live next door to this property and I get this letter in the mail, I don't know who else got it. I have no way of telling who else received that letter. This should be filed in Acela along with the address, because in perpetuity, even if it's on base, you can't go and find it by the address. everything that pertains to this right-of-way, vacation, whatever it is, okay, should be in Acela. If it happens in this city, it should be in Acela, because people need to be able to go and find these things later. Why would public notice not be in Acela? It was number 13 of the 14 documents that were in there. I didn't see any documents, I just went back through, that saw this portion taken away from that. Mr. Cotton just showed you a map that looked the exact same shape as this. It didn't look any different. Now, when I talked to Patrick yesterday, I asked him about this, and he's like, and he says, and he was very frustrated with me because I knew, and he knew, that he couldn't do anything to change this crappy process of it not going into Acela. But we need to make sure that it's out there for perpetuity. Because I don't know about y'all, but every time I search on base, and before that, whatever it was before that, it sucks to search those. It's awful. It is horrific. I have a 300-page document at home where I have my own rolling search so that I can find things that happened at City Council 2 years ago or 3 years ago, because it's so bad to try and find stuff. And I'm not the only person who thinks that. So I don't understand why these documents are not all uploaded in Acela to include the neighborhood notification, because you have neighbors who were notified and had no idea that they weren't the only ones who got the letter. You had neighbors who were notified who have no idea who their neighborhood associations were that were notified. I have a big issue with that, because what's the point in having a neighborhood association if the neighbor does not have access to the information? I'm just saying. Somebody needs to be clear on what this site plan is going to look like and what they're giving away.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else here from the public that wishes to speak?
Motion closed.
Do you have rebuttal, sir?
I have a question.
And before you rebut, council member.
Yeah, I have a question. I have a question for staff about this vacating review comment sheet from Alex Awad that says vacating is not allowed on part of this. What does this mean?
That was, excuse me, Ron Wigington, Legal Department. That was their original review of the application. They have since reviewed it again and has made their comments, revised their comments to no objection, as is shown in the staff report that was uploaded. And you'll see here, their revised change to no objections and no easements requested.
But mobility
That sheet
does
that
in
Ms.
water.
Pointer
Okay.
provided was prior to this revision to their report.
What changed?
I believe they reviewed it, and there is no facilities for stormwater that were in this area. And there's no reservation of easements, so they would not have had any facilities here.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Feely? No? Okay, rebuttal from the gentleman. Please state your name again.
Sure, Harvey Halpern for applicant. I just wanted to briefly mention that I appreciate the citizens' interest in transparency. However, I don't think that there was anything substantive that affects the application. So thank you all.
All right. Can I get a motion to close? Motion to close from Councilmember Clendenin, second from Councilman Vieira. All in favor? Aye. Councilmember Henderson, would you mind reading 52?
I would not mind reading it, Chair. File number VAC 2416, an ordinance being presented for first reading consideration. An ordinance in the city of Tampa, Florida, vacating, closing, discontinuing, and abandoning that portion of Mulberry Drive right-of-way located north of the Hillsborough River, south of Bird Street, east of 19th Street, and west of Rolette Park Drive, within the plats of Catherine Park and Fern Cliff subdivisions in the city of Tampa, Hillsborough County, Florida, as more particularly described in Section 2 hereof, subject to certain covenants, conditions, and restrictions, as more particularly set forth herein, providing for enforcement and penalties for violations, providing for definitions, interpretations, and repealing conflicts, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
We have a motion from Councilmember Henderson, second from Councilmember Clendenin. Roll call vote.
Hurtak? No. Clendenin?
Yes.
Henderson?
Yes.
Vieira?
Yes.
Miranda? Carlson? And Maniscalco.
Yes.
Motion carried with Hurtak voting no. Second reading and adoption will be held on February 20th, 2025 at 10 o'clock a.m. in City Council Chambers, 315 East Kennedy Boulevard, 3rd floor, Tampa, Florida, 33602.
Thank you very much. Councilman Vieira.
Thank you. Are we going for lunch now?
Yeah.
Okay. May I make, I don't know if I'm gonna be back, some family things. May I make two quick motions?
Sure.
Thank you very much. And it's, I mentioned them before. I motion for information on how and where the disability internship positions are being advertised, for the number of applicants submitted, and the effort that has been made interdepartmentally to identify opportunities for placements. That includes inquiries with every single department on their availability and willingness to have an intern, and I would ask for this report to be brought back on March 6th of this year. Do we have space for?
No.
Okay, then it was meant to be written.
All
Then
right.
let's, yeah, so that's.
All right, we have a motion. We have a second? Second from Councilmember Clendon. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Yes, sir?
Yes, sir. And then the second one is, and this is written as well on the same date, motion for any remaining money. So long story short, we had appropriated, I think it was $100,000 in the budget for this internship program, and I don't believe that we're spending all of it. And so I want to make sure that, because if it doesn't get spent, it goes into the giant black hole. And so I motion for the remaining money in the disability internship program funding for this year to be given to the McDonald Training Center, which we're all, of course, familiar with, and CUP, who we're all, I believe, familiar with, and that staff to provide a written report update to this request on the feasibility of it and their position on that. And I'm going to do it at the July 17th meeting, because by then we'll have a better idea of what it is. I do want to state, Mr. Shelby, my brother Juan Vieira is a client at McDonald Training Center. That doesn't pose a, I've disclosed that before, it doesn't do a conflict, but I just want to say that again. That's.
Yep.
Do we have a second on the motion? And so we can have.
Yes, written, just a written report on the amount of money that's been spent and then the feasibility of proceeding with that.
Do we have a second? And then we can have discussion. Second from Councilmember Henderson, Hurtak, Carlson, and Clendon.
I'm fine with getting just a report, but we should really be able to have that. We have a, that should be part of the questions that are coming back. Because we're having a conversation about overages, and I can't remember exactly when it is. So I think we might be able to add it to that, and I wish I could remember exactly when. I think it's the 27th of February during a workshop.
Okay, I mean, so.
Yeah, make the motion, and we have to modify for the 27th.
Yes, here. Council members to go through the documents provided by the budget office and come up with questions about the money that was left over in FY '24.
So how about this? I'll make the motion for July just so that we have it specific to that, but I will inquire at that date. So that
Okay,
is
yeah,
well
I would
taken.
send that question to Ms. Kopesky so that she has it and is working on it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Councilmember Carlson, Clendon.
Well, considering what we saw this morning about the results of the program, the city's program, why couldn't we force the city somehow to set up a fund so that we could move this to next year, so that we could help more people within the city? Not that the nonprofits are not great places, but you demonstrated this morning the effectiveness of the program. It seems to me that we would want to help more, if there was money left over, we'd want to help more people within the city. No?
Sure, and that's a reasonable point to make on the other side, so to speak, but again, this is something that's going to be funded again for next year. I'm going to make sure of that, right? But if we don't force the hand on proceeding with this and make sure that the money that we already appropriated goes to the same results, then I think we will be shortchanging ourselves. So that is my motion, but it will be funded again next year, but I just want to make sure that it's done right. Because these programs, CUP, it's for people with special needs serving coffee. McDonald's Training Center goes to this very same thing. So it would go to the same purpose. And again, we want to find out what money's left over.
Clendon.
Yeah, I don't know what next year is going to bring, because obviously we're going to see some dramatic impacts on revenue because of the hurricanes, and that budget is going to be very interesting next year. So I wouldn't necessarily guarantee anybody bank from the city of Tampa next year, because it's going to be a very, 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 very tough year. I'm just anticipating that. That being said, I appreciate Councilman Hurtak bring into, about this as a larger picture. So I think it was, I'm fully fine with what you asked for as far as a report and where the money's being spent. But as far as reallocation of resources and things we've done, I think that has to be a much larger discussion, because I think it's we have to do due diligence, and I've had familiar family connections to McDonald Training Center as well, and understand and appreciate the mission that they do. But I'd like to see a comprehensive discussion.
So I want to be very clear on what my motion is, council, which is number one, to have the report come back on July 17th on what has been spent, and then for the surplus over that amount to go the feasibility of it going to these organizations, and we can have a discussion in the meanwhile. And I'll tell you what I'll do is, so that, because I identified these two off the top of my head, my motion will be to have the surplus of it go to organizations like McDonald's Training Center, like CUP, that promote job opportunities and training for people with intellectual disabilities and special needs. I don't think that that's something that should be in dispute in any way.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We are in recess until
Thank you, council.
1:35 p.m. I added 5 minutes.